Okay, good morning. Good morning and welcome to the annual statutory town meeting convened to address fiscal requirements, including the town's budget, along with all other matters included in the warrant. I note for the record, a quorum being present, the meeting is called to order. On the dais to my right are Town Clerk Melanie Waddell and Assistant Town Clerk Courtney Buchanan. To my left, Town Council Lauren Goldberg and Town Administrator Mitch Vieira. Sitting in convened session are the Select Board to my right, your left, the Finance Committee to my left, your right, the Department of Public Works Commissioners, and I'll leave it at that. If another committee is in session, let me know and I'll announce it. Please stand, attend the nation's flag, and kindly recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance, and remain standing for the invocation by Pastor Adam Davis of the Pigeon Cove Chapel. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend Adams.
Please bow with me in prayer. God of heaven and earth, you are the one who lavishes your love and kindness upon people from every nation. Any wisdom or goodness or peace that exists in this world is a gift of your grace. And so we pray for your peace to prevail in all places of violence, war, and conflict. Lord, have mercy and cause your righteousness and peace to prevail in our world, our nation, and our town. Holy God, we pray for your blessing upon our town and upon our meeting this morning. Help those who speak to utter only words of kindness, humility, and love, knowing that you will hold us accountable for every careless word that is spoken. And help each of us to listen attentively to others as they speak, seeking to truly understand their heart before rushing to formulate a judgment in our minds. God, you have promised that if anyone lacks wisdom, we should ask you, for you will give it to us generously and without reproach. And so, we ask you to bless us with your wisdom as we gather for this meeting. Lord, we know better than to ask for unanimity on every decision, because we know that it is often through discussion and disagreement that our decisions as a community are made better. Nevertheless, we do pray for your peace to prevail amid issues which might threaten to divide us. As we make decisions today, help us to not seek our own private interests, but rather the good of others above ourselves. Cause our discussions to be fruitful, and bless every vote and decision for the good of our community. Above all, we do humbly ask that you would unite us together through a love for this town and a love for one another which extends beyond the meeting today and flows into our daily lives through the never-ending love that you pour into our hearts. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Davis. I'm now going to ask the members of the Rockport High School Chorus to lead us, or rather, to sing for us, pardon me, no one has to sing, our national anthem. Thank you, members of the Rockport High School Chorus.
And why don't you guys tighten up a little bit more? Swing in this way, arch. Can you see? Here we go. 1, 2. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proud
stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, the land of the free, and the home of the
Thank you, Rockport High School Chorus. Thank you, Superintendent Branco. Get those kids loaded up on a bus for Fenway Park now. And I know we're doing a lot of standing. I apologize. If you could continue to stand, I will ask Town Clerk Melanie Waddell to read the names of friends and neighbors who've passed away during the course of the past year, so that we may together observe a moment of silence in their memory.
Nicola A. Barletta, Peter Burkholz, John P. Campbell, Philip E. Chalmers, Judith Harris, William Montgomery Jr., Charles Nichols, Penny Pilzer, Andrew Porter, Elwyn Richter, Joanne Weil, Joanne Wood. We are incredibly grateful for the years of faithful service to the town of Rockport.
Thank you, Clerk Waddell. And thank you. You may be seated. Thank you so much. If you can just bear with me for a minute. This is going to take about a minute and a half, but I do want to take a minute and a half to recognize some history, and this is part of an initiative from the Massachusetts Moderators Association. As many of you know, it is the 250th anniversary of the independence of the United States. Slide. So, again, about a minute and a half. Just some interesting quotes to think about as we proceed to make decisions for ourselves and our town. This is Massachusetts Governor William Shirley from before the Revolution. I think it's a great quote. The management of it being a town, is devolved upon the populace assembled in their town meetings. You can hear the snare. Where the meanest inhabitants outvote the gentlemen, merchants, substantial traders, and all the better part of the inhabitants, to whom it is irksome to attend. Thank you, Governor Shirley. And this is Lord, and for those of you who've been tortured by my pre-town meeting presentation, some of these slides are the same. Lord Germain, Secretary to the colonies during the Revolution, this is what becomes of their wretched town meetings. These are proceedings of a tumultuous and riotous rabble who ought, if they had the least produce, to follow their mercantile employment and not trouble themselves with politics and government, which they do not understand. And then finally, and on the other side of the ledger, our great friend Alexis de Tocqueville, town meetings are to liberty what primary schools are to science. They bring it within the people's reach. They teach men how to use and how to enjoy it. I'm sorry for the archaic language, but I'm just quoting them the way they wrote it. And then just very briefly, the first town meeting in Rockport was March 9th, 1840, which gives us 186 years of town meeting, and it was held in the vestry of the Congregational Church, which I understand is not the church itself, it's the building behind it. Thank you, that's it, right? Okay. So thank you for bearing with me for that brief presentation on town meeting. Let's prove Lord Germain wrong. The first order of business is the reading of the warrant. The chair will entertain a motion to omit the reading of the warrant. Moved and seconded? All right, the question is whether to omit a verbatim reading of the warrant and requires a majority vote to pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. The second order of business is reading the return of service on the warrant, and I'll ask Melanie Waddell to read the return of service.
I, Matthew Barney, Constable of the Town of Rockport, have on this date, March 27th, 2026, posted the annual town meeting warrant for the annual town meeting to be held Saturday, April 11th, 2026 at 8:30 a.m. at the Rockport High School, in the 2 post offices, on the town website, the town bulletin board, and 17 other public places throughout the town, including 3 in Precinct 1, 3 in Precinct 2, and 3 in Precinct 3. Signed, Matthew Barney, Constable of the Town of Rockport. Received March 27th, 2026 at 10:33 a.m. Signed, Courtney Abra Buchanan, Assistant Town Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Waddell. As I believe you know, there's coffee and refreshments outside of the hall. The restrooms are out and to my left. There's no smoking anywhere on school premises. And please keep in mind we're guests of the school department. Finally, please silence any pagers, cell phones, Apple Watches, whatever might make noise. And I'm going to take my own advice right now. Thank you. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, as adapted to town meeting by the laws of the Commonwealth, Rockport's bylaws, and custom and practice. First principle, let's be civil to one another, listen to one another, and consider carefully our decisions. I will briefly summarize our expected procedure, and I will refer you to the guide for voters participating in town meeting, which is contained in your voters' booklet. We presume everyone has read the warrant. The warrant articles give notice to the town of issues to be addressed at town meeting. They are not self-executing. Once the meeting starts, the meeting deals with motions made during the meeting, technically not the warrant articles in and of themselves, except as referenced by the motion made on the floor. Motions will be made based on the warrant articles as main motions, which require a second. Most motions will be announced by the town administrator, along with the recommendations to town meeting of any cognizant boards and committees. Once a motion has been made, if there's a second to the motion and it is in order, I will then restate the question, and that motion is then before the meeting, and the floor is open to discussion if the motion is a debatable motion. The chair will ordinarily first recognize the sponsor, who will typically be afforded up to 7 minutes to speak to the merits of the motion, followed by a spokesperson for any town boards and committees with a responsibility to advise town meeting on the issue, the Finance Committee on matters impacting town finances, for example. After the sponsor and cognizant town boards, any town meeting member, i.e. any voter, in attendance may be recognized and ordinarily provided up to 3 minutes to speak on the pending motion. If you want to speak, please gain the moderator's attention by raising your hand or otherwise. After I call on you, please state your name and residential address for the record and make your remarks. All comments and remarks are addressed to the chair and should relate to the immediate question on the floor, not something previously decided or yet to be discussed. Remarks should focus on the question before the meeting, its merit or lack of merit, not on personalities or perceived motives of other voters or town boards and officers. The motion, not the person, is the subject of the discussion. Straw polls, however many favor this or that, are not in order and should not be requested and will not be recognized. I will warn you if you are approaching your limit, so you may focus your argument and conclude your remarks. We cannot have conversations. Back and forth questions and answers are technically not in order. So-called debate in a deliberative body is not an argument. I will, however, on specific discrete questions that may come up, try to obtain focused, specific answers from the proper party, a town board, for example. The goals are to hear from all voters wishing to speak, but also to effectively and fairly make rational, informed decisions. Per the town's bylaws, to promote full and robust discussion, the preference will be to recognize voters who have not yet spoken on an issue. A member will not ordinarily be recognized more than twice to speak on any particular debatable issue during the meeting. One exception to that is my effort to get focused answers to discrete questions, as I just reviewed. With that in mind, I ask all sponsors of all motions to pay close attention to the discussion so that matters which require clarification can be directly and clearly spoken to if I'm able to call on you to do so. Discussion must only address the pending motion. So for example, if a main motion is being discussed and a member makes a motion to amend, the motion to amend becomes the pending motion, and only discussion on the amendment is in order until the meeting votes on the amendment. And only then will we return to the main motion, the main question. There are other matters which can displace the main motion. However, it isn't realistic to recite all of the procedural details now, but I will try to ensure the meeting understands the pending question at all times. When discussion on a debatable motion is done, we will proceed to vote. Once we make that transition, further discussion is not in order and won't be recognized. I'll say that again. Once discussion is closed, further discussion on the pending motion is not in order and won't be recognized. That happens when either the moderator senses the meeting's ready to vote, or a voter with the floor makes a motion to move the previous question, which is commonly known as a motion to end discussion or end debate. The first path, if I sense you're ready to vote, I'll state this, and I'll then restate the motion. I won't state it unless I really believe you as a group are ready to vote and no one is actively trying to gain my attention. I will provide fair notice and warning so no one is surprised. The second path to end discussion is a motion to move the previous question. There are 5 simple but important points. First, you can't just yell it out. That's not in order and it won't be acted on. You must have the floor. I must recognize you first. Second, once made by a voter with the floor and seconded, it is not itself debatable. We will move immediately to voting. I will restate the motion to move the previous question or end debate, and we will vote, almost certainly using the clickers by electronic means. Third, you can argue support or opposition to the pending question, or you can move the question. You cannot do both. In other words, you can get your licks in, or you can say we've talked enough, but you can't get your licks in and then say we've talked enough. Fourth, such a motion requires a 2/3 vote. The principle is that no matter how strong people's views are on an issue, if 2/3 of the people in this room want to end discussion and vote on the issue, it's time to end discussion and vote on the issue. Fifth, with this in mind, I would ask any voter to consider before moving to end the discussion whether there have been issues raised by your fellow members during discussion, but we have not yet clarified through the sponsor. I can't and won't stop you from bringing the motion, but I do ask that you remain mindful of this point before making it. If this motion is made and fails, however, it is then within my discretion to determine when another motion to end debate can again be put before the meeting for a vote. As for voting, we will use electronic voting, the clickers, fairly frequently. I expect on any motion to move the previous question, and on any motion which is likely to be a close vote. In the interest of respecting your time, however, and promoting an efficient meeting, I will, from time to time, use voice or hand votes for matters which I believe are not a close call, but which legally require a vote of the meeting. For example, as I did with voting on omitting a reading of the warrant. If a 2/3 vote is required by statute or bylaw, and I declare the vote through hands or voice vote and announce the vote or announce it as unanimous, if anybody disagrees with me, if anybody wants to challenge that, that's fine. We'll vote again and we'll take the count using electronic means. These procedures are not to cause frustration or to hide the ball, but rather to promote clarity, fairness, and efficiency. I want to thank our microphone runner, Evan Lewis. Evan, where are you? Evan back there is a microphone runner who will be able to bring the microphone if that's your preference. To be clear, we've got a microphone here in the middle. We've got one up front. Anybody can use either one at your election, whatever you think is most effective. For today's meeting, I have determined that the following articles are related, so that when any one of a related group is drawn by the town clerk, we'll take up the articles in that group in the order stated. And this is in your voters booklet on page 4. A and O, B, C, D, and E, F, G, H, and I, and L, M, N. Oh, and I would like to take a minute to thank our senator in the Great and General Court of Massachusetts, Senator Bruce Tarr, who's over here to my left. Thank you, Senator Tarr. As you know, and I'll get to this again, for the annual town meeting, we first proceed with budget articles in order, and then we go to lottery articles, which are designated by letters. The town clerk can better explain how lottery articles are drawn.
In front of me on the table, since early this morning, are letters A through P, and they're Scrabble letters. And they will go into a bag. It happens to be a purple bag. And when we get to the Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, I will pull out a letter. And this was handed down to me, by the way. We will pull out a letter and any related articles. And if it's, we'll try to keep you informed as to 2 or 3 articles at a time, what will be pulled out of the bag. And Brian will announce the upcoming article, so you know what to anticipate.
Next, given what we all went through the past few months with the weather, I want to take a second to thank our very dutiful and industrious snowplow drivers with the Department of DPW and thank them for their service. And I believe Commissioner Reed has an announcement for us from the Department of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is, for me, a sad day in some ways, and another day, it's a day of celebration. And I don't know how many of you know this, but Gary LeBlanc, who has been an employee of the town of Rockport for roughly 20 years, working for the DPW in the last 5 years as our DPW director, is retiring. And I just want to acknowledge what he's done for the town the past 5 years. And talking about those snowstorms, if you needed him at 1 or 2 in the morning, he was sleeping on a blow-up mattress in his office. So that's the kind of dedication that he had to this town. So I'd like you all to stand up and with me thank Gary for his years of service. But we managed to replace Gary rather quickly. And I'd like you to introduce you to our new DPW director, who was our assistant director, Aaron Shalufo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Reed. All right, this is, I'm almost done. This is the portion of the script where I tell you what happens if we don't finish and we need to adjourn and have another meeting. So here it is. If it becomes necessary to adjourn before completing the business, I will leave Cape Ann and never show my face in Rockport again. All right, let's do a QA check on our clickers. Everyone should have a clicker. Please wear them around your neck so I can see them. Brief preview, this is just a test. You're going to press 1 or A for one option, which I'll give you in a minute, and 2 or B for the other option, which I'll give you in a minute. When we vote on anything using the electronic clickers, I will announce what we're doing, and there will be a countdown of 12 seconds. During those 12 seconds, which will be displayed on the screens to my right and left and on the monitors halfway through the hall, when you see those numbers counting down, that is when you can vote. During the countdown, I'll lead it off by saying vote now, 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 and I'll keep saying it at least while that countdown starts. But you can watch the numbers to determine if you can vote. You can vote as often as you want. It's only going to register once. But what you want to look for is a green light when it's counting. If you hit it now, it's not going to be green. You want to look for a green light while it's counting. That will tell you your vote is being registered. I got the color right? Okay. Any questions on what I've said so far? All right. So here's the question. Obviously, this is also non-binding. The question is this. If you are a good person and think that real maple syrup is the best, you're going to hit 1 or A. If you like that vile dressed up corn syrup, you're going to hit 2 or B. So that's the question. 1 or A for real maple syrup, 2 or B for vile dressed up corn syrup. Voting now. It started. Look for a green indicator light. I can't believe the 13%, you're out of here. All right. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Administrator, I believe we're ready for the first motion. Oh, do we have a hand raised? Do we have a clicker problem? The whole time? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Or we'll and if it happens again, we'll change your clicker. Right? Ready? 12 seconds on the clock, and everybody can check again. Vote. Now. Start now. It's starting. 10, 9, 8, 7. Still red? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Yep. Did it? Again, it shows how much influence I have. Yeah. She's the only one who had a problem. They could have gone to the restroom. Oh, they did. Did we have anybody else go get new clickers other than our one person here? Okay. So I'll let you get seated and we'll do it again. Melanie, it's always going to be one. Yeah. All right, we're all seated. Same question. 12 seconds will be on the clock. Vote now. It's counting down. Vote now. Look for the green indicator light. We all set? Ma'am? June? Good? Okay. Okay, thank you. With that, Mr. Administrator?
Mr. Chair, Article Roman numeral 1 for FY26. Select Board Member Ross Brackett moves Article Roman numeral 1 as indicated in the motion printed on page 35 of the April 11th, 2026 Voters Booklet. Select Board and Finance Committee recommend this article.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is on whether to appropriate and transfer from available funds sums to be expended by town departments to balance the fiscal budget for 2026 as set forth on page 35 of the Voters Booklet. It requires a majority vote. Any discussion? And I see you, Mr. Arsenian. All right, Mr. Arsenian, discussion.
Tumultuous rabble. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. The fourth item down, $50,000 from free cash to master climate resiliency account. How much do we have in this account, and what projects are we talking about? Please be specific, the sites of the projects. And I object to the word resiliency. That's wishful thinking and nonsense. Climate change is real. Structures along the coast get smashed. They don't pop back up like bowling pins. You need to find another word. Some answers.
Mr. Arsenian, which line was that? I'm sorry, I lost the thread for a sec. 50? I got it. I got it.
$50,000
50 from
free cash.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, through you, the Master Climate Resiliency account currently has a balance of approximately $259,000. I do not have a list of projects in front of me. Projects that utilize funding from that account are approved by the Select Board and Public Works Commissioners in public meetings.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries. On to Article 2, Roman numeral 2.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Vice Chair Denise Donnelly moves Article Roman numeral 2 as indicated in the motion printed on page 36 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend this article.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to appropriate by transfer sums to be expended by town departments to pay bills from prior fiscal years set forth on page 36 of the voters booklet. This requires 4/5 or 80%. Discussion. All right, seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That is unanimous and that motion carries. Article number 1.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Member Laura Evans moves Article 1 as indicated in the motion printed on page 37 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board recommends this article.
Second. Moved and seconded. The question is whether to designate the treasurer as agent for the various trust funds for the town. It requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. There's no motion under Articles 2 and 3, I believe.
Correct.
So on 4.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Member Dwight Valentine moves Article 4, first motion, as indicated in the motion printed on page 38 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet.
Moved and seconded. The question is on whether to amend compensation schedules for salaried employees as stated on page 38 of the voters booklet. This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. Second motion.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Member Dwight Valentine moves Article 4, second motion, as indicated in the motion printed on page 38 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet. Select Board and Finance Committee recommend.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. The question is on whether to amend compensation Schedule C for elected officials as stated on page 38 of the voters booklet. It requires a majority vote. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's change it up. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed say no. Sorry, all those opposed, raise your hand. Pardon. All right. That motion carries. And now we're on to Article 5.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Chair Laureen Wessel moves Article 5 as indicated in the motion printed on page 44 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend this article.
Seconded?
All right. The question is on whether to appropriate the sum of $41,615,291 US as set forth in the table of estimates on pages 44 through 52 of the voters booklet and raise from taxation $39,485,565, transfer funds, allow and apply funds, and allow authority for goods and services contracts as set forth on page 44 of the voters booklet. This requires a majority vote. Chairperson Wessel.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. The Finance Committee makes recommendations to town meeting on financial matters, including the annual operating budget, capital projects, borrowing, and funding sources. The committee helps voters understand the issues and the financial implications of the articles at town meeting so that they may make informed decisions. The town has consistently maintained a conservative and pragmatic approach to the operating and capital budgets. That said, persistent inflation, particularly in healthcare and energy, as well as the decrease in state aid over time, have combined to create a challenging operating environment for Massachusetts municipalities, including Rockport. While the town has managed to deliver a budget that minimizes pain this year, it's clear that future years will present new challenges. Federal grants and state local aid for various capital and operating needs, for example, may no longer be reliable or even available as funding sources going forward, which makes planning and execution of goals less predictable. The town remains focused on how best to manage fiscal balance without compromising necessary operating expenses and capital improvements. The proposed FY27 budget operating segments are level funded where appropriate and responsive, with increases where sustainable and necessary. Proposed capital funding is designed to meet the same requirements. The town's systems, water, sewer, roads, bridges, buildings, require repair and upgrading. While the Public Works Department has coped with disruptive events to date, we must prepare for inevitable future adverse events, including the effects of climate change. The proposed FY27 budget accounts for current necessities, adjusts to changing circumstances, and with an eye to the future, anticipates emerging needs. The Rockport Public Schools. The elected school committee approves the Rockport Public School budget and submits it to town voters for their approval. Over the past 3 annual budgets, Rockport Public Schools have engaged in continuous right-sizing, scrutinizing staffing models and resource allocations, finding efficiencies in shared services. At the same time, Rockport Public Schools have focused relentlessly on making sure that they have excellent academic programs that meet the needs of a wide range of learners. Thanks to continuous community support, Rockport Public Schools are well-positioned to provide students with an excellent educational environment. Rockport Public Schools continue to look for ways to maximize operational efficiencies and educational outcomes for students. One example of this work is a new partnership between the town and the district for FY27, through which the town's Department of Public Works will assume financial responsibility for fuel and power expense and for transportation, repair, and maintenance expenses, as in the case for all other town departments. As a result, $558,100 will shift from the school budget to the town's budget. In summary, this year Rockport Public Schools have again worked responsibly and effectively to produce a budget that addresses current and prospective needs. Overall, the careful diligence demonstrated by the Rockport Public Schools bodes well for students, staff, and the entire community. The Department of Public Works. The DPW continues to prioritize the town's physical infrastructure and daily operational needs, as well as the means and costs of responding to the needs long-term. Present and future demands arising from aged infrastructure, water and sewer issues, depleted equipment, increased fuel costs, the material and impact of encroaching climate change, the need for development, and other factors require that the DPW undertake comprehensive planning. Employee benefits. Health benefits and pensions together constitute approximately 22.75% of the total FY27 general fund budget. The health benefits portion of the budget is increasing by 10.89%, and pension benefits are projected to increase by 4.91%. The debt service. The town continues to benefit from an excellent credit rating, AA+, by S&P Global Ratings, and therefore can incur debt at a favorable interest rate. Projected increases for FY27 cautiously reflect indications that certain revenues, example, excise tax, hotels, meals, will continue to increase. Beginning in July 2026, the town will begin collecting from short-term rental owners, such as Airbnb and Vacasa. With the 360 short-term units currently registered with the Commonwealth, the town anticipates annual revenue of approximately $500,000 deriving from these fees. The Capital Outlay Improvement Committee, CIPC, receives requests for capital items for the operating departments and enterprise funds, meets with each department, and then prioritizes requests before making recommendations to the Select Board and the Finance Committee. Free cash is used to describe monies that derive from the operating budget of the prior fiscal year. This includes appropriations that were not fully spent and revenues collected in excess of the budget. Examples of sources of free cash include local receipts from motor vehicle excise taxes or interest on investments which exceed budgeted amounts. Unspent monies budgeted for salaries, benefits, materials, and contracts also become free cash at the end of the year. The Finance Committee thanks all the town's departments, employees and staff, and volunteers for their diligence and patience throughout this year's budget process. Their dedication to the citizens of Rockport in maintaining and improving services is constant and truly appreciated. The Finance Committee recommends approval of this proposed budget of $42,827,597.
Thank you, Chairperson Wessel. All right, by custom and practice in Rockport, this motion is taken by paragraphs. We will go through the table by department. If a voter wishes to have a department's budget discussed after I call out the department's number from the table of estimates, which is on pages 45 through 52 of your voter's booklet, please call out loudly, "Hold," and we will come back to those departments. All right, so if you break out your booklets, and actually it starts on page 44. So if you have your booklets out on page 44 at the bottom, and I'll list the number and then the department. 114, moderator. Wunderbar. Going over to page 45, 122, select board. 124, select board committees. 131, finance committee. 135, town accountant. 141, assessors. 147, treasurer, town collector. 151, legal. 153, human resources. Now we're on page 46. 154, information systems and technology. 161, town clerk. 164, elections. 171, conservation commission. 175, planning board. 176, zoning board. Over to page 47. At the top, 181, community development. 210, police department. 212, traffic and parking. 215, lifeguards. 220, fire department. Over to page 48. 225, forest fire department. 231, ambulance. 241, inspection services. 249, animal inspector. 291, emergency management. 292 dog control, 293 parking clerk, 295 harbor master's shellfish. Over to page 49. 400 Department of Public Works Administration. Over to page 50. Let me put that down. 510 Board of Health. Did I hear something? 510 Board of Health. 541 Council on Aging. 543 Veterans Services. 610 Library. Over to page 51, 635 Granite Pier. 638 TAC 9, Thatcher and Straits Smith Island. 692 Memorial Day Committee. 700 Debt and Interest. 911 Essex Regional Retirement System. 913 Unemployment Insurance. 914 Group Insurance. 916 FICA Medicare. 917 Sick Leave Buyback. 940 Insurance Expense. 52. 300 and 305 Public Education. Hold both. Did I hear you right? Hold both. Okay. All right. From my notes, we are holding the following: 175, 400, 610, 700, 300, and 305. Any which I failed to hear and note. All right, so first up then is 175, Planning Board. Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. There, the second item, you'll see $40,000 for the planning consultant. That's Betsy Ware, and she is an excellent planning consultant and a great help to the planning board. At present, the planning board isn't doing much planning. Most of their time goes to stormwater permitting. That was due to a mistake we were all led into in 2023 by the Government and Bylaw Committee when we approved a stormwater bylaw giving the planning board charge of the stormwater permitting, which now overwhelms them and consequently overwhelms the consultant as well. So we, the taxpayers, the voters, are paying the consultant, and a lot of her time goes on the stormwater permitting. The theory of the stormwater bylaw was that the people who got the permits, these are private projects on private property for private benefit, were going to bear the costs of the program. And it certainly is not the case if the planner's time is all given to the stormwater permits. And I spoke to the planning board suggesting that they needed to re-examine the fees, and got the brush off, and spoke to the town administrator, who was told me that all town departments had to review the fees that they charged annually. So are we going to recoup the amount of money that goes into the planner's time for reviewing the stormwater bylaw permits, and how would we go about doing that?
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian.
Mr. Moderator, through you. So the planning consultant line here, the consulting planner that the town engages handles myriad administrative and professional technical matters for the planning board. Stormwater is one of those. Sometimes it's a large part, sometimes it's not. Areas where under the stormwater bylaw there is a significant need or it's specifically focused on that, the planning board does retain an escrow for those particular projects.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, moving on to line item 400, Department of Public Works. 400, Department of Public Works. Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Highway, general, wages, highway expense, and garage. We spend a lot of money on repairing roads, as is right and proper, and shortly we'll be asked to approve Article J, accepting 2 private roads. Do we have enough money to, as things go forward, to repair the public roads? It's my impression that there's a great backlog, and I remember a discussion at a DPW commissioners meeting a few years back when they were saying that we needed anything between $8 and $12 million to get the town's roads into proper shape. So how much are we spending this year on repairing roads?
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian.
Mr. Moderator, through you, general remark on this. So for roadway paving, the town utilizes a number of accounts. The town utilizes Chapter 90 funding, which comes from the state, which is an article that will be in the lottery. It also utilizes the Master Roadways account, which was replenished in Roman numeral 1 this year. And it also utilizes borrowings. The Department of Public Works utilizes a detailed plan that a consultant has worked with them on roadway conditions. They are in the process of preparing to update that plan in the latter part of this year to ensure that it is current and they're aware of what needs to be spent. Bottom line, they utilize those combination of funding sources based on the projects.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Ring.
Jonathan Ring, 9 Pools Lane. I sent an email to the traffic committee telling them that Pools Lane, my street, is a disaster because the potholes are big enough to fit 10-pin bowling balls in them. I would appreciate it if a message could be sent to the traffic committee to remedy that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ring. Any further discussion on 400, Department of Public Works? All right, moving on to 610, Library. Mr. Seavey.
Charlie Seavey, 19 Ridgewood Road. Mr. Moderator, could somebody explain to me why the department head of the library appears to be taking a salary hit when, as near as I can make out, with the exception of the dog control person, every other department head is getting a pay raise. Somebody really needs to tell me what's going on.
Sure. So, Mr. Moderator, I can address that. So, there is no reduction in the library department salary at all. As we do annually for the last 7 years, COLA adjustments move over from the labor reserve account, which is part of this main motion. There is no reduction. When you look at the classification and compensation schedule, which was approved in motion 1 of Article 4, there is no reduction in that position.
All right, thank you. Moving on to 700, Debt and Interest. Debt and Interest. Mr. Arsenian.
The federal government operates a Ponzi scheme, the national debt, the $38 trillion, but we don't. Please tell us what percent of the total budget goes to pay the debt on the money that we've borrowed, both exempt and non-exempt.
Mr. Moderator, through you, Are you looking for principal and interest or just interest?
I thought I made it clear before. Interest alone.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, through you, interest is approximately 2.3% of the operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 300. Mr. Arsenian, 300, base funding from town, from all town, annual town meeting appropriation for public education, 300. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Two subjects. First, the school's reserve. I asked the question, got my questions into the Finance Committee, not answered, and not answered by the school board either. How much do we have in the school's reserve? And the second comment relate to the SPED expenses. The SPED expenses now eat up 37.5% of the school's budget. These expenses are not the fault of the SPED kids, their parents, not the fault of the school committee or superintendent. They are entirely the fault of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which orders the cities and towns to fund these programs but does not pay for them. It is the SPED expenses on the one hand and the declining enrollment on the other that will bring the ruin of the Rockport schools. I feel strongly that the school committee, and failing that, our illustrious leaders, the Board of Selectmen, owe us a resolution to the state, to the honorables, our representative and senator, and to the governor, calling on them to pay all of the unfunded SPED expenses.
Thank
Can
you,
we
Mr.
have
Arsenian.
a response?
Well, I can't force that, but we'll see if anybody wishes to address anything that you've raised. And I see Superintendent Bronco. And we'll get right to you right after that, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Mr. Arsenian, right now, the amount is $1,999,884, just shy of $2 million in the reserves. And yes, the special education component is 37%. And we are working very closely, superintendents from across the state, with our legislative team, including Senator Tarr, on everything possible when it comes to special ed transportation and Chapter 70 resolutions. So while there hasn't been a formal resolution written at the town level, I assure you that I represent the town and the community as far as what we're trying to do with our legislative team members to reduce the costs of the taxpayers when it comes to all of our education. And I'm very proud of the work we've done in the school district, and I thank the community for supporting us.
Thank you, Superintendent Branco. Yes, ma'am.
Skyless Reed, 25 Norwood Avenue. Could you explain to us in the base funding from town for the schools, what we're losing with that drop from $14,745,000 to $14,627,000?
Could you just say that again a little louder? I'm sorry, I've got my mother's hearing and it's not great.
No trouble. Could you explain what we're losing or what's being cut from the fiscal year 26 to 27?
Oh, but the difference between $14,745,139 and $14,627,894?
Yes, what's the effective loss there?
Thank you. See if there's a taker on that. Superintendent Branco's on his feet.
If I understand your question, you're asking about the DPW transfer, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So there's no loss of service. The town has had a great relationship between the town and the schools previous to me getting here with the technology department. So we have a town technology department that services the town side and the school side. This is a start of a partnership with the DPW. So we're taking the funds that were in the school budget, moving them over for the DPW to support us, but there's going to be no loss in services. As a matter of fact, we believe there's going to be some efficiencies in the work and more timely addressing of the facility needs.
Thank you, Superintendent Branco. Is this on 300? 305. 305, right, I'm getting there now. So 305, Essex Tech High School Annual Town Meeting Appropriation, 305. Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite. Somewhere in the Finance Committee's report, it said that at the last minute, greatly increased assessments from the Essex Tech. How much more are we paying the Essex Tech? And more to the point and more interesting, how much per student is it now costing us? And this is not to suggest that it is something we would dispense with or something that doesn't matter. But there's a moral in all of this, and that is that once you become part of any sort of regional system, you're on the hook. And as a minority shareholder in a publicly held company, you have a voice, but your voice doesn't count.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian.
Mr. Moderator?
Yep.
The Essex Technical High School assessment has increased largely on 2 points. One of them is the increased debt service that is in place for the work that is being done, that's being proportionally distributed across all of the municipalities that are member districts. And additionally, the superintendent of the Essex Regional District shared with Dr. Branco and I recently that they had to correct their minimum school spending amounts. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education did a review and they were not meeting minimum school spending. So this is correcting that matter. So all of the assessments are, for all the member districts, are impacted the same way.
All right, thank you. Hold on just in case there's anyone else. Mr. Arsenian? Okay, Mr. Arsenian.
Thank you, that was helpful, but we were not told how much per student, which would be a cautionary tale.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on 305? Okay. Seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. The question is on whether to appropriate the sum of $41,615,291 as set forth in the table of estimates on pages 44 through 52 of the voter's booklet and raise from taxation $39,485,565, transfer funds, allow and apply funds, and allow authority for goods and services contracts as set forth on page 44 of the voter's booklet. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. On to 5A.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Chair Maureen Russell moves Article 5A as indicated in the motion printed on page 52 through 53 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend this article.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is on whether to appropriate $3,749,976 from the Water Enterprise Fund and provide for a reserve fund for the town's water enterprise for fiscal years 2026 to 2027 as set forth on page 53 of the voter's booklet. It requires a majority vote. Discussion. All right, Mr. Arsenian.
Definitely, we want water if we turn on the taps, and you hope that the toilet flushes. So definitely, we need to vote for it. It's going to go way up, and if you turn to the Finance Committee's production on page 41, it explains how much in terms of percent it's going to go up. Alarming figures. Let me see if I can find page 41. Maybe the Finance Committee can explain. One of the figures for water was to go up 23%. I'm failing to find it and I'm blind. And the one for sewer was to go up a comparable sum. And it's not that we would say yes or no to it. We need to say yes to it. All of this turns into increased fees for the water and sewer. I speak of both of them here, and the Finance Committee is honest enough to explain it. They don't go out and borrow the money all at once, but the rates are going to go up, and when we vote for this, we are in fact setting the rates, because the commissioners, when it comes their turn to hold the public hearing, have to raise the amount of money that we're approving here. So will the Finance Committee explain what this will turn into in terms of increases on the rates for both water, this one, and for the next one, sewer?
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. Do I have someone over here? Sorry. Oh, yes, please. It's time to hand it off, Gary. You got to let him do it.
So we are engaged with a financial company that is assessing the costs. We predict that it will be somewhere within the realm of 5 to 8% increase.
Could you repeat that? We had some people unable to hear.
Sorry, so we've engaged with a financial consultant that is doing a rate study, and we're still working through the numbers, but it's going to be somewhere within the 5 to 8%.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion? Hold on, Mr. Arsenian. Yes, ma'am. And we can get a mic to you, maybe. Thank you. Thanks, Evan.
Amy Seabrook, 13 Curtis Street. 5 to 8%, is that, forgive me, is that this year or is that for next year?
Okay, thank you. We'll see if we can
Next year.
get that.
Next year.
Oh, next year. Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, whatever it is, we must suffer and pay. There's no choice in the matter. But there are other aspects to it. It has been years since the commissioners looked at the fees for connecting to the water and sewer. You connect to the water, I believe, by right. It costs money to connect to the sewer. We're talking about water at the moment. And they need to schedule hearings or consult with the consultants on the rates and go way up on the fees to connecting. Those of us who've been here for years paying the bills have paid for the whole existing system. But when you hook into it, you are paying a few $1,000s and have all the benefits that we've paid through the nose for umpteen years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. Any further discussion on the motion under 5A? All right, seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. The question is on whether to appropriate $3,749,976 from the Water Enterprise Fund and provide for a reserve fund for the Water Enterprise for fiscal year 26 to 2027 per page 53. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That motion carries and it's unanimous. On to a motion under Article B, 5B, excuse me.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Chair Laureen Wessel moves Article 5B as indicated in the motion printed on page 54 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend this article.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is on whether to appropriate $3,400,076 from the Sewer Enterprise Fund and provide for a reserve fund for the Sewer Enterprise for fiscal year 26 to 2027 per pages 54 to 55 of the voters booklet. It requires a majority vote. Is there discussion? Now, Mr. Arsenian, I'll recognize you, but you did address both sewer and water the last time. I didn't stop you. Is there an additional issue you'd like to bring to the meeting's attention beyond what you've already said?
Did we get both figures?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Arsenian. You can use the mic. I can't hear you. I just want to make sure that it's not what we just went over.
Did we get both figures, both water and sewer?
Yes. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. The question is whether to appropriate $3,400,076 from the Sewer Enterprise Fund and provide for a reserve fund for fiscal year 26 to 27. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it's unanimous. On to 5C.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Chair Laureen Wessel moves Article 5C as indicated in the motion printed on page 55 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. Select Board and Finance Committee recommend.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is on whether to transfer $111,477 from the Community Preservation Fund for Community Preservation Committee expenses for fiscal year 2026 to 2027, as set forth on page 56 of the voter's booklet. It requires a majority vote. Discussion. Seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. On to Article 6.
Mr. Moderator, Capital Improvement Planning Committee Chair Don Southard moves Article 6 as indicated in the motion printed on page 56 through 57 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to appropriate $2,929,798 for capital outlay items by transfer and borrowing as set forth on pages 56 to 57 of the voter's booklet. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion? And I'll get to you, sir, unless there's someone else. Seeing no one else, Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, aren't I a bore? But anyway, Planning Board, Master Plan Consultant. The Planning Board never voted to ask for that money, so I would question how it got there. But the Capital Improvement Planning Committee endorsed it, and so has the Finance Committee. I think it a mistake. At present, the Planning Board doesn't do much planning. They spend all their time, or much of it, on stormwater permitting, but we elected them to plan. They have the able assistance of the planner, Betsy Ware, competent and enterprising, and did the master plans in Greenland and Stratham, New Hampshire, and the legwork for the plan in a much larger community, Winchester, Massachusetts. So they should be doing the plan, not us hiring a consultant. And you might think that with a plan, everything would be peaches and cream and happily ever after. Alas, not so. With or without a plan, we're up against the economic trends which drive everything: real estate prices, the distribution of income, where people want to live. We have no control, nor will a plan, over any of that. And changes in the zoning require a 2/3 vote, and we're all eager to defend our own private interests, as is appropriate, balance those against the common good. Who's to say what that is? If we're to have a plan, the Planning Board was elected to do it, and they should do it. And I object to paying for the consultant, and if 9 other people will join me, we can vote on that separately. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. Ms.
9
Medea.
people.
Thank you, Jamie Medea, Holbrook Court. I disagree and want to go on record as saying that we elect people to oversee, and we need, they're volunteers, and we don't want them to actually write the plan. I think we need professionals who do it all day, every day, and keep up with all the possible resources. So I support the use of a consultant for this and many other boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medea. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, the question is on whether to appropriate $2,929,798 for capital outlay items by transfer and borrowing as set forth on pages 56 to 57 of the voter's booklet. I'm going to try this by a voice vote. If anybody thinks I call it wrong, shout out. Nothing will be held against you, and we will use the clickers to do it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That's unanimous, carries by more than 2/3 if my math is right. All right, thank you. On to Article 6A.
Mr. Moderator, Capital Improvement Planning Committee Chair Don Southard moves Article 6A as indicated in the motion printed on page 58 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to appropriate $2,522,460 for capital outlay items relating to the town's water enterprise by transfer and borrowing as set forth on page 58 of the voter's booklet. This also requires a 2/3 vote. Open for discussion. And I'll get to you, sir, unless there's anyone else. Seeing no one else, to Mr. Arsenian's left. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Victoria Jackson, 145 South Street, and I've noticed that we're borrowing millions of dollars, and I'm just curious what the total amount of money that the town is planning to borrow in this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Mr. Moderator, for the Water Enterprise Fund, it's the $2.5 million. That's a separate enterprise fund, so $2.5 million is the total that's in front of you for that fund this year.
Mr. Arsenian.
5A and 5B were operating expenses for water and sewer. 6A and B are capital expenses, and it looks like $2.5 million roughly for each. We were told what the other would turn into in terms of an increase in the rates. Are these included in that estimate of the increase in the rates? I've asked about this before, and the treasurer collector has explained that it's an authorization to borrow these large sums of money. It does not follow that they go racing out and borrow it. They would borrow it piecemeal as projects came forward. So it doesn't all hit at once, and it's an easy question to ask and a hard question to answer. But what do these borrowings turn into on the rates, or is that included in your calculation when we were just told about the rates?
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. I'll see if there's anyone who wishes to address that. All right. Any further discussion? Ms. Jackson.
Thanks, Victoria Jackson. I may not have asked my question correctly, because I just am wondering about how much money we're going to borrow overall. Like there was 1.5 million for the fire apparatus, and then 2.5 for the water system. I'm just curious what the overall borrowing is.
Sure. So,
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Just as an initial point of clarification, those are coming from different funds. Just to be clear, the fire truck that was approved came from the general operating fund. The water one is coming from Water Enterprise, and sewer will come from Sewer Enterprise. For the water and the sewer system improvements, there was a large presentation at last year's annual town meeting that spoke to the fact that this is now the second year of what is likely a 10-year process on significant system-wide improvements, whether it's pipes in the ground, pump stations, or the treatment plants. So it is something that DPW has through their capital process and is continuing to assess. These earlier years in the process, last year, this year, are continuing to show what some of the larger expenses are. We did anticipate that there will be a number of borrowings moving forward. There'll be something likely borrowed each year over the next several years. I don't know that we have that exact amount right now, as we're still continuing to make assessments on the overall condition in a number of these areas. They continue to be poor. The findings continue to be poor because the system is aged and in not good condition. So I would say that number is continuing to be assessed, but as we shared last year, there will likely be borrowings each year for the next several years for the two enterprise accounts for overall improvements as the DPW commissioners and administration work through their plans on it.
Great. May I follow with one more question?
Okay, get one more question, Ms.
Yeah.
Jackson.
So I'm new. This is my first full town meeting. Is the borrowing from money that's already within our town budget, or is the borrowing like from a bank?
It's bonds, right?
It would be bonded by the treasurer, subject to approval once it's issued. So right now, you're approving an authorization. Should the town approve it? It would be the approval of an authorization up to that amount. It is borrowed according to Mass General Law that covers that, and it's handled by the water and sewer rates respectively. So it's not simply just going to a bank. The town has a bond rating consultant that it works with. It works with legal counsel, and it goes out through the market for sale.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Amy Seabrook, 13 Curtis Street. So I think Victoria's question is about the way our town and the world works and how resources are diminishing. So I think we don't need an answer. We just all are interested in balancing the budget, maybe not today in the black, but for our future, I think that we all, or most of us, we need to work with the systems that work for us today, and we need to look to a future where we draw in as the resources draw in.
Thank you, Ms. Seabrook. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Again, the question is on whether to appropriate $2,522,460 for capital outlay items relating to the water enterprise by transfer and borrowing per page 58 of the voter's booklet. This requires a 2/3 vote. Same process. I'm going to try a voice vote. If anybody wants to challenge that, let me know, and we'll go to the clickers. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That carries by more than 2/3. It's unanimous. On to Article 6B.
Mr. Moderator, Capital Improvement Planning Committee Chair Don Southard moves Article 6B as indicated in the motion printed on page 59 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to appropriate $2,605,663 for capital outlay items relating to the sewer enterprise by transfer and borrowing as set forth on page 59 of the voter's booklet. This also requires a 2/3 vote. Discussion. All right, Mr. Arsenian.
My question on the last one was not answered, and now the same question on this one. Does this mean an additional increase in the rates? We were told about 5A and 5B, what those would turn into in terms of the rates. We have not been told about the last one, 6A, and now we should be told about that and about this one, 6B. Is this an additional increase in the rates, or is this covered by what we were told earlier about the rates?
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
So it will include an additional increase, but it will not be seen or until it's borrowed. So it will fall at a different, at what that time will be in the future, but it's not going to hit specifically at that time.
And just state your name and position for the record, if you wouldn't mind.
I'm sorry, Aaron Schlufo, Assistant DPW Director.
Any further discussion? 6B. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Polynesiak, 6 Camborne Way. For 5A and 5B, you had indicated a 5% to 8% increase. Could we get an idea of what this would be also? Thank you.
I believe that was, anything to add to that, Assistant Commissioner?
So there's no specific amount, it's just that there will be an increase.
That's my understanding. I don't think that there's a way to discern that with any specificity at this stage. And if I'm wrong, the DPW will correct me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, since you're ready to vote, the question is on whether to appropriate $2,605,663 for capital outlay items relating to the sewer enterprise by transfer and borrowing as set forth on page 59 of the voter's booklet. This requires a 2/3 vote. Same process. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That carries by more than 2/3. Thank you. Okay, on to the lottery system. You gonna draw two?
I'll draw the first one and see what we have. It's
Okay.
of related articles, so.
No one. That's true.
M,
All right, first one up is Article M.
which
which means that we will start with Article L, M, and N. So the first motion under the lottery will be a motion under Article L, and then depending on the result, we'll be going to either M, Mike, or N, November.
Mr. Moderator, Planning Board Chair Jason Shaw moves Article L as indicated in the motion printed on page 70 of the April 11th, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Planning recommend.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to accept the designation by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities as a seasonal community as set forth on page 70 of the voters booklet. This requires a majority vote. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Jason Shaw. I live at 9 Athena Way. I'm the chairman of the Planning Board.
Oh, Mr. Shaw, just before you start, I apologize. Mr. Shaw gave me notice ahead of the meeting that he's going to need about 10 minutes, which I have given him, so 3 minutes beyond the 7. Thank you.
Okay, what I'm going to do right now is put up a PowerPoint presentation that actually we've done already, but I think it'll be helpful to explain the seasonal communities designation and what it is and what it isn't, which is actually as important as what it is, and so you can understand it better. This is an initiative by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to recognize communities similar to Rockport's, which have a unique position in the Commonwealth, meaning we're basically communities where the populations vary drastically depending on the season, where housing seems to be expensive and outstrips the average incomes for the people in the communities, and where the occupancy rate of properties is vastly different in the summer than what it is in the winter. So here are the questions that this will go through pretty quickly. What's the designation mean? Who has received it already? How did we as the town of Rockport qualify? What next if the designation is approved at this town meeting? And what are the time frames after, assuming it's approved here? And what benefits come to the town with the seasonal communities designation? And how does this designation help our accessory dwelling unit bylaw, which was actually adopted 4 years ago? And the last question that will be asked, are we stuck forever with the seasonal communities designations? So let's go to the next slide here. What is it? And I kind of explained that earlier. It applies to communities with substantial variations in seasonal employment, a high rate of short-term rentals in relation to overall housing, significant population increases in seasonal visitors, disparities between the area median income and income needed to buy a home, percentage of houses used for seasonal, occasional, or recreational use, or otherwise not a primary residence of the owner, like Rockport. Next slide. 43 towns and cities have received the seasonal communities designation in Massachusetts, including 3 counties. Dukes County, Nantucket County, and Berkshire County. These are the counties that are in Cape Cod and the western part of the state in the Berkshires. The legislature just said, look, you're a seasonal community, you're built into the law, and then other communities like Rockport need to submit a statement of interest to the state to establish that we're interested in the designation, and we've done that. And actually, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities on February 18 said that the town of Rockport receives their designation as a seasonal community, which now has to be voted on at this town meeting. Why did it receive their designation? Because we have a rate of short-term rentals in relation to the overall housing inventory of over 3.25%. The percentage of housing used for seasonal, occasional, or recreational use, or not as a primary residence by the property owner, it's over 12.5%. And as I said earlier, to retain this designation, we have to approve it or not approve it, depending on how the vote goes, at this town meeting. So what does that mean? If it's voted, it's approved here, and it's a majority vote, by the way. It's not a 2/3 vote, it's a majority vote. It means two things that the town must do within the next 2 years. 2 years to do these two things and only these two things. And I'll talk about other options that we can do if we receive this designation, but they're not required. These are the two things we must do. We must create zoning to allow for what are called tiny houses as of right in single-family residential district. A tiny house is a detached house that is a principal dwelling on a lot and is not more than 400 square feet of floor area. The tiny houses, by law, must be year-round residences and must comply with state and local building codes. The second thing that we must do is create zoning that allows for mandatory year-round residences, no fewer than 10 months of occupancy on undersized lots. And you'll see what an undersized lot is. Underneath that is basically a lot that's at least 10,000 square feet, or 25% of the minimum lot size of a residential lot where the residence is located, whatever is greater. Rockport, by the way, already has quite a few 10,000 square foot lots in its residential zones. These items, 1 and 2, are not being voted on today. I have to say that because I know people get very interested in this because they think, wow, we approve a seasonal community designation. We're approving these. No, these are two things that will be voted on during the next 2 years. These things, we must either approve them or disapprove them over the next 2 years, but they're not being voted on today. So what's the next thing? Here are some pictures. These are examples of what tiny houses can look like. All of these houses have one thing in common. They're all about 400 square feet. And you can see there's a variation in appearance, height, size, etc. But that gives you an idea of what a tiny house could look like. Again, these are not being voted on today. It just gives you examples of what would constitute a tiny house. Next slide. As I said, Rockport must adopt the tiny house zoning law and the undersized lot zoning law 24 months from today, i.e. 2 years, assuming you approve the seasonal community designation. Okay, next item. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Now, these are the things that the town could do in the future, doesn't have to do, is not doing by voting on the seasonal community designation today. These are not being voted on today. I'm just trying to tell you what could arise in the future if the town so wanted to do it. Now, all of these things under the seasonal community umbrella are meant to try to increase affordable housing in the town of Rockport. That's the goal. That's the goal from the state. That's what they want. So that's why we're working in that direction. These are the things: creation of a housing trust fund. We could do that. We could create a preference for housing for essential employees, people who do things like fire, police, DPW, et cetera, who have significant roles in the town. We could create a zone that allows for artist housing, housing for households with at least one person who produces or supports artistic and literary activities, which, by the way, some of you know the history of Rockport. Actually, there's quite an artistic community here decades ago, a lot of artists in Rockport. And We could create a development of a comprehensive housing needs assessment. We could do that up to twice annually. And finally, we could raise a property tax exemption for year-round residences. None of these things have to be done, but they could be done in the future, but only if the seasonal community designation is approved today. Okay. So let me talk a little about our accessory dwelling unit law, because that will be affected by the vote today too. In 2022, this body, the town meeting, approved accessory dwelling units as of right in the town of Rockport. And they've been actually very popular. We were ahead of the state in that respect, because in 2024, the Commonwealth did its own protected ADU law, which allowed accessory dwelling units in all zoning districts in the town of Rockport. Every single one. You can have like a house, turn a garage into a house, turn a spare area in a house into an accessory dwelling unit. They're typically, people call them mother-in-law apartments, but they're basically a separate, smaller dwelling unit that allows someone to live on the same lot as the main house. So in 2025, we readopted our accessory dwelling unit law to be in line with what the Commonwealth had adopted in 2024. However, the Attorney General at the time, after we adopted ours, didn't like one thing about it, which was that we had a restriction in the law which said you couldn't rent a new accessory dwelling unit for less than 6 months. The idea was to make sure that accessory dwelling units were used for long-term housing and not short-term rentals. So we put this 6-month provision in the lease, in the law, to require that. The Attorney General didn't like it, but we've since been told affirmatively that if we get the...
So, Mr. Shaw, you're at 11 minutes. With unanimous consent, Mr. Shaw can have an additional 2 minutes to explain the complexities. Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Did somebody object? Good. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm almost there. If the town accepts the seasonal community designation today, then we can amend our accessory dwelling unit law to bring back the 6-month limitation on rentals, which is one of the things we want to accomplish here, and it's one of the warrant articles. If you don't accept the seasonal community designation, you can approve it later at a town meeting, but then we can't have the 6 months. We have to go back to what the state says is the legitimate requirement for rentals, short-term rentals, which is 31 days for a ADU. So we are stuck with a 31-day maximum limitation. What happens if you accept the seasonal community designation today? You can revoke it at another town meeting. If you don't like it, the town meeting can revoke it. If you reject it today, you can approve it at a later town meeting, and you don't need to go back to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to get their permission. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities may revoke the seasonal community designation if the town, A, fails to adopt the required zoning within the 24-month period. Remember I said the tiny house zoning and the undersized lot zoning, and doesn't essentially permit new, smaller residential units, more affordable residential units during this 2-year period. So the worst that can happen to us if you vote for it today is the state can revoke it 24 months later. There's no financial penalty. There's nothing that would hurt you, except the options that I've just gone through would no longer be available in terms of housing to maybe make housing more affordable in the town. This is a real effort by the state to do that. So I think I'm at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion? Discussion? Yes, ma'am. Oh, no, hold on. We're going to get you a mic. Or you can, Jason, can you let her use that mic? Or you can come on up. You can use whichever mic you want.
You want to come up here or go over there? Either one.
That's okay. We just need to hear you.
Ma'am,
name and address, please. Your name and address?
Okay, Cynthia Johnson, 9 Marmion Way. My question is on the ADUs, the 6-month thing, if that was passed, if any time frame was passed for ADUs, are people who have been renting apartments and ADUs for years, are they grandfathered in and allowed to keep doing that? And this only applies to new ADUs or everybody, including people who've been renting their an extra apartment for a month or so in the summer?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I can answer.
Okay, and then we'll get right
Yeah.
to you after that, ma'am.
It only applies to new ADUs. If you already have an ADU and you're already renting it and you have an occupancy permit for it, the 6-month limitation does not apply. Okay? You're not limited to a minimum of 6 months if you already have an ADU, if this law passes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi. Good morning. Maureen McCarthy. I live at 62 Marmion Way. I own one rental property in Rockport. That's 14 Breakwater Ave. My husband and I own numerous properties on the North Shore, and we have over 20 years' experience renting and renovation. We own no ADUs. We have not done Airbnb since 2018. We stopped for several reasons, one being friction from the town and the residents. My current renters have been there for over 6 months. In fact, one tenant has been there for over 8 years. Hence, I have no dog in this fight. I have issues with this proposal. There are 2 types of agreements. The first agreement is a lease. The second agreement is a tenant at will. The best legal advice I ever got was to go tenant at will. Anybody who is seriously in the rental business, you always want to go tenant at will. The leases is only going to benefit your renters, and you could be stuck with a very difficult situation. The Massachusetts law actually forbids this clause. That's why you were denied, because MGL 186 S12 states that no tenant at will agreement can be outlawed or eliminated in Massachusetts. The terms of MB2I1 basically violates that law. Lastly, how many ADUs does Rockport even have? I recently saw the figures for Gloucester. Very few have been built. I believe Rockport is trying to solve a problem that is not even a meaningful issue yet. The town needs to focus on core issues. Regulatory boards is a key factor contributing to the housing crisis in the North Shore. Net, tell me that this proposal permits tenant at will agreements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to line some questions up, Mr. Shaw, and then we'll get to you. Ms. Medea?
Thank you. Jamie Medea, Holbrook Court. My first is a question and then an observation. I couldn't find the total percentage of Rockport's total dwelling units that are used seasonally. I saw the minimum had been exceeded for the state's requirements, but does anyone know what percentage of Rockport's housing stock is seasonal?
Okay, I'm going to line up several questions and then go back to Mr. Shaw. All right, thank you, Ms. Medea. Any further inquiry or point?
That was the question, and then I have a somewhat unrelated point about the text. Which do you prefer?
Go right ahead.
The unrelated point about the text, and I apologize, I didn't see the details of the text. I couldn't read it in time to submit a 2-day in advance amendment. But I noticed that on page 73, and I do support this, I'm going to vote yes. I'm pointing out a concern. I teach land use law and environmental law at Boston College Law School, and my concern is under the general requirements for the protected use ADU, it says under B, no more than one protected use ADU may be created on a lot. There shall be no more than 2 dwelling units on a single family lot. My concern is I wish that was not a shall without the inclusion of without a special permit, or something of that nature, because if we really want tiny house development or just small additional units, they are usually best done in groups to create a community on 1 or 2 lots together. So I wish that this had said, instead of shall be, it can be done with a special permit, shall not be, that it can be done with a special permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medea. Mr. Shaw, you want to take a bite at those two discrete questions?
Yeah, let me take a bite at those two, because they're both good questions. The percentage question, what percentage of housing is not occupied full-time? Was that your?
That'll do, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. I know the state knows that number.
Okay, all right. I'll get over to you.
And it might actually be known by our assessor here. The other, but it's high enough to qualify us for this
That was
category.
clear. I asked, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the other question, what you're looking at here and the language that's the existing ADU law. That's on the books now. You're not voting on that. The only thing from these two warrant articles you're voting on is whether you're going to vote to increase the minimum length of a lease for a protected ADU to 6 months, or to keep it at the 31 days. Those are the two articles that follow the. We're not redoing the entire ADU law today.
And to be clear, what is right in front of us at the moment, and I understand these are consequences that may flow from that, but the specific question in front of us now is whether to accept the designation. All right? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medea. And did we have any information from the assessors? No, come on up to the mic, state your name and position. Sorry.
Hi, Elizabeth Dukes, Principal Assessor. Seasonal percentage is 17%, 83 primary.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Vella.
Diane Vella, 17 King Street. I just want to make it clear that we do have an affordable housing trust in this town. It was voted on by this body, I think in 2017, and that I would really encourage going forward with this as long as we begin to plan for housing. We need a cohesive plan for what the trust does, what the planning board does, so that we can come together. What we understand very clearly is this town needs family housing, and this town needs senior housing, particularly for seniors who have some disabilities. So I'm hoping that we can work together on this, Jason. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Vella. Mr. Arsenian, I'm going to bring the voter behind you first. You've spoken a few times. We're going to give this next voter a chance to speak.
Thank you. Pauline Yishak, 6 Camborne Way. A couple of things, and I think I'm confused. You're saying that we're not voting on the small houses or the housing on the undersized lots. We're only voting on whether we're going to be deemed to be a seasonal community.
So let me see if I can get it, and if I don't, Mr. Shaw will correct me. The first step is to decide whether or not we will accept the designation which has been offered by the state. If the town accepts that designation, then we can make bylaw changes which are contained under Article M. If we do not, then 6 months is off the table, and we can make bylaw changes if this body chooses to 31 days under Article N. So the first step is whether to accept it at all. Do I have that right, Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, that is correct. That's all we're voting on tonight for the seasonal communities, is whether to accept it or not.
But my concern is that if we accept the seasonal community designation, the regulations that were promulgated by the state in February don't say that we may change the zoning. It said that we shall change the zoning.
Yes, and if we
so
don't, I can answer.
It's not whether it's up to us or not. If we accept the seasonal community designation,
Yeah.
we are automatically going to cede zoning to the state so that tiny houses and housing on undersized lots can happen as a matter of right, and that will not be up to us.
If it's accepted, the town then has a period of 2 years to put compliant zoning regulations in place. If the town does that, then those regulations are in place. If the town does not, the designation is then lost.
But
So that's how it works, as I understand it.
But that it's not what the regulations are saying. The regulation is saying it shall amend its zoning. It's not saying may, it's saying shall, and that's a different thing from may.
Yes, within 2 years, and the consequence of not doing it would be to lose the designation. That does not, in and of itself, implement new zoning that we don't get to vote on. That's not how it works.
Okay, I really think we need to get clarification on that before we move forward, because the regulations doesn't say that we shall do, that we have a 2-year designation. It's automatically that we are ceding zoning to the state as a matter of right. And again, you're also saying that the lot size is 10,000. The regulations that were just promulgated specifically say that nothing prohibits a town from being more permissive with undersized lots or more permissive with setbacks, which means that it doesn't have to be 10,000 square feet for a lot either. There's also 2 provisions in the regulation. One says the occupancy of 10 out of 12 months. The other one says that you can't rent for more than 6 months. It's 2 conflicting regulations. So the town of Sandwich, who has the same percentage that we do of 13%, stepped back and decided to take a wait-and-see attitude to see how these regulations play out before they step forward and deem themselves to be a seasonal community. We have 2 years that we can decide to be a seasonal community. So why don't we take a step back and let the regulations test itself out, and then come back next spring and we see what happens in these other towns before we decide to be a test case for the Mass state regulations. We don't even have the answer to this.
Okay, thank you for your remarks. We'll
Thank
see if
you.
we can get some direct answers to those specific
I'd like
points.
to answer those, because I think you're, with all due respect, I think you're a little confused. The seasonal communities designation is now, if we vote for it, the tiny house and undersized lots are zoning laws that need to be constructed and voted on within the next 2 years from today. If they're not voted on, or if they're not implemented within that time, the state can remove the seasonal communities designation from the town of Rockport. But nothing is forcing the town of Rockport, I know you quoted the word shall, but nothing makes the town of Rockport adopt either of those 2 zoning provisions. If we don't do it, the worst that can happen to the town is it loses the seasonal communities designation. That's it.
Okay.
So that it's nothing more or can happen to the town.
Well, Mr. Shaw,
Thank you.
I appreciate that you
Ma'am,
feel that I'm a
ma'am,
little...
we're not going to go back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's important to
Okay.
understand, I think as a retired attorney and not a confused voter, that
Okay,
there's a big
listen.
difference between the word may and shall.
Hold on. I understand your point. I will try to get back to you, but there are other people waiting. I'm
That's
going to try
fine.
to see if I can repeat what was said between you, and we do not want, we want to be civil to each other. I do not think you're a confused voter. I think you're an interested voter, and I thank you for your remarks, okay?
And
All right.
I would like to know where in here it says after the shall that we have 2 years to do that.
So-
I think that's extremely important for the voters of Rockport to know that.
I have it. I'm going to move on,
Thank
and I
you.
will go back to you. I'm going to take one more stab to see if I can capture it correctly. Bear with me for the stupid analogy, but here's my analogy. The motion we're deciding now is whether to accept the designation. That's first base. If we get to first base, we then, within 2 years, need to go to the second and third bases. And that has to be done by the town. The state cannot just throw a zoning law into the town. They can do other ways of compelling that, as we all know. But those would have to be steps taken by the town. They need to be done within 2 years. If we elect not to go to second base, then we're off of first base and we're not in that game anymore. I believe that's how it would work. Do I have that right, Mr. Shaw, with that analogy?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And I will get back to you, ma'am, I will. Yes, sir.
Don Crane, 2 Phillips Ave. So is there any relationship between state-mandated affordable housing requirements and steps that Rockport takes so that if we do or don't adopt this today, then the state could come in and enforce some affordable housing requirements and take them out of our control? I had heard that somewhere, but just would like clarification.
There really isn't. I think what people talk about affordable housing requirements, they're talking about, I think, 40B, a law that allows a developer to come in and kind of override the town's zoning and build affordable housing. They're doing that, they're having a fight over that down in Manchester. That's a completely different set of laws. That really doesn't have anything to do with this. This is allowing more affordable housing, voluntarily creating the zoning, the smaller lots, the smaller houses, the greater density, so that less costly houses can be constructed to be either sold or rented to people. But it has nothing to do with the 40B requirement where a developer under that law can come in and actually build and override the town's zoning to build affordable housing.
So this does not help us, provide us protection against somebody coming in and doing that?
Well, if you reach a certain percentage of housing, if the state deems that you have a certain percentage, I think it's 10% of affordable housing, you're kind of inoculated from someone coming in under 40B to build housing against the will maybe of the town folk. But that's
what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's where you are. I understand that. This seasonal community designation doesn't really directly apply to that.
But indirectly, it does help possibly on
yeah,
affordable
I guess
housing.
you could say indirectly it does, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Monica Lawton, 11 Story Street. I think we all have to remember that this town, as Jason said, voted to authorize ADUs several years ago. These are now mandatory, they are allowed as of right in all residential districts in town. I think when we were discussing this, if my memory serves correctly, we debated all manner of rental term limits. And there was discussion of the purpose of these is to increase affordable housing throughout the town on existing lots, and permanent housing rather than short-term housing. So there was discussion, shall we require a minimum rental of 9 months? Shall it be 6 months? Shall it be 3 months? And there were strong feelings across the board, but the town came to a decision that 6 months was reasonable, taking into account the needs of property owners, but also the needs for permanent housing in town. So that was a very important decision that we made several years ago, and the state took that away from us by declaring that that was unreasonable and mandating that we must allow rental units of 31 days. We could not mandate any higher rental period. So the state has basically turned our bylaw, trying to create permanent housing, into a bylaw that essentially allows short-term housing on existing units all over town, which is exactly not what we wanted. But by accepting the designation as a seasonal community, we are allowed to go back to what we wanted in the first place, which was at least a minimum 6-month rental. So by voting for a seasonal designation today, we will be able to restore what we wanted with this ADU law that we voted upon and approved several years ago. And that alone is worth the designation as a seasonal community. I hesitate to think what would happen in my neighborhood with large lots of land, and I can see people putting ADUs there that they can rent out on a short-term basis, and that destroys community. We have already a 17% seasonal part-time residents in town. We don't need more of it. And Jason has been very clear that there are very few mandates in this law, and there are things we can do, some of which will also be beneficial. But this one provision is worth the designation, and I urge this body to vote for it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lawton. Hold on for 1 second. I do now want to return to our, and forgive me, ma'am, I couldn't recall your name, the retired attorney. Ms. Niziak? Ms. Niziak? Okay. So do you have a mic? Okay. Evan, can you give her a mic?
Oh, thank you.
So I just wanted to return to you because I told you I would.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to just ask you if that clarified things at all, and I'm also going to ask town council to address the points you raised. All right? Anything else from you before I have town council address your specific point?
Well, my concern is I appreciate the issue of the ADUs, but what's happening is the Attorney General ruled against a town-approved 6-month restriction, and in exchange for getting that restriction back, we are designating ourselves as a seasonal community, which under the regulations will require us to have tiny houses and housing on undersized lots by right.
So, and I understood that. I wanted to go specifically to your question about zoning regulations and seating authority. Ms. Goldberg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you. 760 CMR, subsection 76.12A, no joke, the seasonal community fails to adopt zoning pursuant to 76 within 24 months from local acceptance or the designation, whichever is later, is a reason that the EOHLC may revoke a seasonal community designation. So failure to do so.
That's a revocation if we don't approve it, but it doesn't, that says nothing about the fact that if you approve this today, then automatically the regulations require you shall have those two tiny houses and housing on undersized lots as a matter of right.
No,
it says the state can revoke it, but it has nothing to do with us having 2 years to decide on that zone.
No, thank you, and I appreciate your remarks. I really do. I think at this point we have a difference of legal opinions here, so we're going to have to move on. I understood what you said. I understood what counsel said. Yes, sir.
So then, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, then perhaps we could, if we have 2 years in which to decide this, perhaps we can put this off for a fall town meeting to get some clarification.
I'm sorry. There are some rules. We do have some speaking limits. I certainly don't think there's any confusion on where you stand. You're urging a no vote. I think I've got that. I think the meeting has it. Yes, sir.
Yes, Jonathan Long, 3 Andrews Hollow. I was just wondering what would happen if, say, at some point in the future, miraculously, we could get a bunch more people who are living here full time.
Yeah, a little closer to the mic.
Apologies. Jonathan Long, 3 Andrews Hollow. What happens if at some point in the future we drop below that seasonal residence requirement? So it's like the 12.5% piece. Would we lose that seasonal community designation automatically? And what happens to all those things of the, say, the options if we take them? Would those get revoked just if we have more people living here full time?
Okay, thank you for your question. I'm going to go to Mr. Shaw in a moment. Mr. Arsenian, if you have another issue we can tee up for the planning board.
Should I speak?
Yes, Mr. Arsenian, go ahead.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. You now sense that there is bait and a hook, although not one hook, 2 hooks, the extra small houses and the small lots. And Jason Shaw, I believe, misspoke when he said we must approve or disapprove in 2 years those 2 things. We must approve them. And they may revoke means they will revoke. And the more basic question, Article L, which we're trying to deal with now, is it worth having the seasonal communities designation? What exactly will you get? The one thing that you would get that would be worthwhile is the ability to limit the rentals of the ADUs to a minimum of 6 months. That would put the hex on ADUs. It does not, the other side of the coin, give anyone housing security. A year's lease, you've heard a landlord speak about the inadvisability of leases, a year's lease is as much housing security as you could hope for as a tenant. Anything less is a joke. 6 months and then you're looking, can you move into your great-aunt's attic or your cousin's basement? Is it a tent in the woods, or are you going to move to Beverly or Chelsea or somewhere down the line? It's simply acknowledging the problem the rental restriction to 6 months, but it doesn't get you anywhere. It is not worth having. And we have not discussed, we're putting the cart before the horse. We've not discussed the extra small houses or the extra small lots, which are radical changes in the zoning and will entail a lot more units. Think of water and sewer. The planning board, when it came to the ADUs, were asked how many additional units we would get. They made no attempt to answer that question. Consequently, they did not go to the DPW and find out if we could produce water and sewer for that many, however many additional units. So we're blundering into a marsh, and if we want this, we should first consider the extra small houses and the extra small lots, and then it might make sense to look at this. I'll vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Seabrook? Actually, Ms. Seabrook, I'm sorry. The gentlelady behind you, I don't think has addressed us yet. I'm going to go to her first.
Just a question. How long is this seasonal?
And your name and address, ma'am? I'm so sorry.
Molly Hastings, 5R High Street.
Thank you.
How long has the seasonal designation, occurred to these communities? And if it's been more than a year, what's their experience?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to see if we can get some questions from Mr. Shaw, and then we're going to go to Ms. Seabrook. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Shaw, would you like to address any of the matters that have been raised by the last three speakers?
The 6-month limitation on ADU rentals was actually 2022 town meeting here was hotly debated. And there were some proposals to extend that, to make that a year, and that was defeated. The town voters did not want that. So we came to the 6 months as a body at town meeting, and what we're trying to do with the seasonal communities designation, one of the things we're trying to do is be able to bring that back to our ADU law, so it's back in the law, because right now it's 31-day minimum, and we want to bring that 6 month back. If we don't have the seasonal community designation, if you don't approve it today, we cannot restore that 6 month limitation to our ADU rental.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Does that make sense? And the other thing was...
was there something else?
I think that was it. In terms of water and sewer, those are things that was alluded to here. Those will come up later when we get to these zoning provisions, but we don't know enough now. And your question, I want to answer your question. You want to know whether there's been a track record with these other communities, and the answer is this law is too recent to really have the data on that. So the answer is, what I'm aware of, there is no data to show what the effect is of a seasonal community designation at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Ms. Seabrook?
Amy Seabrook, 13 Curtis Street. This is very confusing, probably for a number of us. I would like to ask, if we vote on this, or I would like to make a statement, and that'll be my question. You can tell me yes or no. If we vote yes on this, will it mean that the 385, or what is the correct number of short-term rentals in Rockport today, there will be no effect on the short-term rentals that exist today? If we vote yes on this, then right now, as of today, short-term rentals coming on, rentals, not short-term, coming online will be for 6 months or more as of this vote.
So just to be clear, the vote in front of you right now does nothing to zoning bylaws. It accepts a designation. Then we need to turn today to one of two proposed zoning bylaw changes, depending on your answer to that question. One of them is under Article M, and to summarize it, puts in a six-month minimal rental for an ADU. The other one, if the meeting declines to accept a designation, puts in a minimum period of 31 days. I believe that's the status. So right now, the only question before this meeting is whether to accept the designation. We then will go on to entertain one of two proposed bylaw changes.
Thank you. I'm going with Monica. I'm voting yes.
Thank you, Ms. Seabrook. Mr. Keston.
Yes. Rick Caston, 31 High Street.
Caston, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. My understanding is that if there is the 6 month, whatever we set it at, you know, whether it's 30 days or 6 months or whatever, that's the minimum. So you can negotiate with somebody saying like, I will only rent my property out if I ever have an ADU for 3 months, or I can only say, no, this is a year lease only. But I have to, if somebody came to me, I can always extend the lease, but the minimum time frame is, I guess what I'm asking, is this a minimum, or can we adjust, can the landlord increase it beyond that?
It's a minimum. Any given person who has an ADU for rental could say, that's great, 6 months minimum, but I want a year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Amy Sieben, 5 Row Avenue. A question for background. Since the 2022, we all agreed to accept ADUs. How many ADUs have been approved and built in Rockport?
Thank you, ma'am. I'll see if I can get an answer from the planning board.
Yeah, I don't know the number, and the reason I don't know the number exactly, but it's a number that could be retrieved, is because one of the things we did when we approved the ADUs was we made them as of right, so they didn't have to come to the planning board, they didn't have to go to the zoning board, they went directly to the building inspector. And the building inspector could issue a building permit. Now, I can say that in the last half year or so, I've been looking at the number of ADU applications to the building inspector, and it's growing. It's growing. These are ADUs that people want to build, they want to occupy as new ADUs, but I can't give you a number as to exactly how many, because it's been, 2 or 3 years since that time. But there have been at least 4 or 5 that I personally know of where there have been 4 or 5 applications for new ADUs. In fact, we just had one that did come to us for a different reason at the planning board last meeting. So they are there. People are getting aware of this law, and now they can have an ADU, accessory dwelling unit is what that means, in any zoning district in the town.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Ms. Coogan?
Colleen Coogan, 7 South Street Court. I'm voting yes for this because I see a glimmer of hope that our young adults can move back into our town and live independently. Currently, my kids are living elsewhere. One is in a 400 square foot or smaller small house. Not very many people are going to want to live in a 400 square foot or smaller house, however young adults would. So I just see this as an opportunity to turn over the Airbnb turnover and get some early housing back in.
Thank you, Ms. Coogan. And I'm going to turn to town council in a second. Just to be clear, sorry again to beat the dead horse. The question in front of us is whether to accept the designation. If you decide to accept it, we then look at a zoning bylaw change that applies to ADUs only with a minimum of 6 months. If you decline to accept the designation, we then turn to a proposed zoning bylaw change with a minimum of 31 days. Just to reiterate, all that we're talking about right now is to accept the label. I'm now going to turn to town council to clarify any confusion I've caused.
Mr. Moderator, excuse me, through you. I think we've talked a lot about the ADU bylaw right now. The town has an ADU bylaw, as has been mentioned. There's really no amendments that are being suggested to that other than the minimum length of a lease of an ADU. That's part of the seasonal communities designation, that the town has the ability to make that amendment under the law. The seasonal communities designation, as was described more fully by Mr. Shaw, includes other opportunities for the town. With respect to future requirements under the Seasonal Communities Act, right now, the law says the town shall, and the word shall does appear there, adopt two kinds of zoning. The town, once it accepts the law, once it accepts the designation, has 2 years to work out how it wants to draft its zoning, the town zoning. The zoning of the town does not change without a vote of town meeting. So town meeting has to vote to change the zoning bylaws, so nothing will automatically happen. And to the extent that the town does not do that, the regulations make clear that the state can rescind its designation of the town as a seasonal community. If it does that, then the additional opportunity that we're talking about restricting the lease to 6 months, goes away with it. So it's one of the things that the Seasonal Communities Act does. But what you're voting on now is the question of whether to adopt the Seasonal Communities Act. Then you're going to look at that one particular part of the ADU bylaw. If the town does not accept the Seasonal Communities Act designation, then we have to look at changing the ADU bylaw to be consistent with state law. And that's, in the future, there will be discussion about tiny houses and how to regulate them, and about the other matter that's required under the Seasonal Communities Act.
Thank you, Council. Yes, sir.
Andrew Hubbard, 47 High Street. I appreciate what we're all trying to do is get, housing for people to afford. But everybody here, their largest investment is their house, right? And what stops from somebody, let's say, buying one of these and, I don't know, having 4 kids living with them? And then it bursts out of the house and you got cramp over the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've lived in Chicago for 30 years. And I've seen this sort of thing, and I agree with the one lady about maybe why should we be the test case? Let's watch others do it, see how they do it, and say, okay, well, that's a way definitely not to do it, because once you start it, you can't take it back.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just to be clear, we already have done it. We have an ADU bylaw. The question in front of you is to whether or not to accept a label called seasonal communities that will then allow all of you to move forward and decide whether you want to take the current ADU bylaw and put a minimum term of 6 months. Okay. If you say you accept it, you can change that bylaw to put in a 6-month minimum. If you don't want to accept the label, then you cannot.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I was just reading what was in here. And I might be ignorant because I'm relatively new to the town.
No, I understand. Let me try to clarify that. The relevant section is repeated in its entirety in the warrant for convenience so that you can put it in some context. But the first question in front of you right now is to whether accept that label or not. And then we will go on to decide whether or not to amend the already existing ADU bylaw. So we're not deciding whether we're allowing ADUs or not right now, if I understand it correctly.
No, you're right. No, you're right. I get that, but A goes to B, then goes to C, and I'm just trying to get ahead of before we get down that road. That's all. That's my only concern.
No, I appreciate that, but okay. We're not repealing the ADU bylaw. We're accepting a designation that will allow us to put in a 6-month minimum term or not. That's the first thing we're doing. Yes, sir, behind you.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Can I just comment on the
ADU? Mr. Shaw, you've got something to clarify?
Yeah,
please go ahead.
Just a clarification, Mr. Moderator. If you look at the ADU bylaw, which is in your booklet, the only part of that bylaw that you're going to be voting on is the part that's in bold. In other words, there's a darkly bolded sentence in each of the warrant articles. Those are what you're voting, and you're not voting on the entire ADU bylaw. That's already on the books. It's just the dark part of the lettering of that ADU bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Yes, sir. Sir.
Paul Seavey, 11 Marmion Way. I just want to clarify. I have a very small rental, and it was a summer rental from in 1962. When I brought up my 2 brothers, I made it a year-round rental. It's probably about 400 square feet. Now, if the economy gets really bad, it's bad enough already, but I foresee possibility of wanting to do summer rentals. maybe a week or a month, because you can charge a great deal more money for that. And I'm not getting another job. I've already got one. So does this all apply to my situation? Can I not go to a summer rental situation should I need more money to keep up with the inflation?
I'm sorry, I had a little trouble understanding you specifically. If you could just restate that question.
Will the 6-month requirement rental apply to a small building which has already been rented for since 1962?
No, it will not.
That's okay. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Workman?
William Workman, 85 Main Street. I think we're all a little exasperated at the way the state went about this ADU thing. It was pitched to us as grandma's got no place to, she'd love to leave the big house, but she can't. And then the state's chiseled away at our ability to control that so that it is kind of a verbo Airbnb bonanza. My question is, should the seasonal, and I think the seasonal designation, kudos to the planning board, it's a nice workaround, but it does come with other obligations. Have we considered that if we can't implement ADUs the way it works for Rockport, we should just vote at the next meeting to strike that bylaw, just get rid of it and not allow any more ADUs? It's extreme, but it is a possibility. And I would just wonder if that's been given proper consideration. Thanks.
And my understanding is that one challenge that municipalities face is ADUs at this point are by right under state law.
Yeah.
Not under 900 square feet.
So ADUs, so that, yeah, I don't, is that the case? Say that again?
ADUs under 900 square feet, probably 900 or under, are as a matter of right under state law, beyond our reach. Yeah. So the question that we have today is whether we want to...
Yeah, I don't need you to explain this situation. I promise you I get it.
I know, but I know it's confusing, and I know I'm going to repeat it if I feel there's any confusion. But in any event, that is correct as of right.
So this, if we want to control ADUs at all, it sounds like we've come up with the best workaround we have.
Okay. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Beth Renner, 49 Granite Street. Please, please, please call the question.
All right. The motion to move the previous question or end debate is moved and seconded, and it is in order. This is not itself a debatable motion. It requires a 2/3 vote to carry. If the motion to end debate passes, we will then proceed immediately to vote on the underlying motion under Article L, whether to accept the designation as a seasonal community. If the motion to end debate fails, the floor will then immediately be reopened for further discussion on the underlying motion, whether to accept seasonal community designation. We will vote by electronic means. You will have 12 seconds from when I say the words "vote now." You will press 1 or A for aye if you support ending debate on the underlying motion. You will press 2 or B for no if you oppose ending debate on the underlying motion. Would anyone like me to clarify the question before you? All right. The question is whether to end debate on the motion to accept seasonal communities designation. All those in favor of ending debate, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed to ending debate, press 2 or no. Ready, vote. Now, 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 now. The clock is counting. Now, now, now. And that motion carries 95% to 5%, and the numerical count is 174 to 9. All right, we now immediately move to voting on the underlying motion under Article L. The question is whether to accept the designation by the Executive Office. I'm going to use electronic means. Is whether to accept the designation by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities as a seasonal community as set forth on page 70 of the voter's booklet. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed to accepting that designation, press 2 or B for no. Voting now, 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 now. Clock is ticking. You can vote now, now, now. And that motion carries 78% to 22%, and the numerical count is 136 to 38. On to Article M, Mr. Administrator. Oh, yeah, hold on for 1 second. The clerk's going to call the next letter, which will tell us which group of articles or article we're going to next, after we get through M in this case. Yeah, well, it's only M. So after we get through the next motion, we will then be going to hotel, Article Hotel. So that will be as follows. Motions under Article F, followed by G, followed by H, followed by I. Okay, back to a motion under Article M, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, Planning Board Chair Jason Shaw moves Article M as indicated in the motion printed on page 75 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Planning Board recommend.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to amend the zoning bylaws, Section 400, TAC 16, Code of Bylaws, entitled Protected Use Accessory Dwelling Units, as set forth on pages 70 to 74 of the voters booklet. This requires a 2/3 vote. Mr. Shaw.
Okay. Now that the seasonal community designation has been approved by a majority of voters here, we now move to Article M. Article M is the current ADU bylaw in the town. This is already on the books. This has already been approved. The only thing you're voting on with Article M is on the, if you go on, it would be page 74, there's language, you see it in bold, the minimum length of a lease for a protected use ADU shall be 6 months. That is what we were talking about quite a bit with the seasonal community designation, but actually by approving that seasonal community designation, we can now, as a town meeting, approve or disapprove of this bold language, which basically will bring back the 6-month restriction on ADU rentals. And it only applies to ADUs, by the way. There might be some confusion that it would apply to, if you own a house and you want to rent the whole house, it doesn't apply to that. This is only for ADUs, the 6-month limitation. And the reason we did that a couple of years ago was the fear that people would construct accessory dwelling units simply to use them for short-term rentals rather than full-time housing. So this is what you'll be voting on here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Discussion. Yes, sir. There's someone with a hand up. Mr. Arsenian?
Is it working? Yes. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. According to the planning board, if you vote for this, everything will be well, but everything will not be well. You will indeed get the 6 months restriction, which, as I tried to explain, sounds good, but is not worth having. But we have blundered into a swamp led by the planning board. We don't know how many of these units we've got. They were asked, they don't know, and we don't know how many we're going to get. And we've just seen the water and sewer rates rise greatly, and we're not in control of the situation. It's, at this point, with this article, a lost cause. Out of principle, I'd vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. It's a 2/3 vote. I'm going to use electronic means. So again, the question before you is whether to amend the zoning bylaws, section 400-16, Code of Bylaws, protected use accessory dwelling units, as set forth on pages 70 to 74 of the voter's booklet. If you favor the motion under Article M, you will press 1 or A for aye. If you oppose the motion under Article M, you will press 2 or B for no. Would anyone like me to clarify what we're about to vote on? It's a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed, press 2 or B for no. Voting now, 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 now. It's counting down. Vote now, now, now. And that motion is adopted 85% to 15%, and the numerical vote is 137 to 25. On to, was it? No, there's no N. No, there's no motion under N, right? Right, no motion.
Yeah, because...
Yeah, all right. On to Article F, Foxtrot.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Assessors Chair Tim Good moves Article F as indicated in the motion printed on page 63 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. Select Board recommends.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 37, A, relating to a real estate tax exemption for qualifying blind persons. This requires a majority vote. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth Dukes, Principal Assessor. All four of these are related to real estate tax exemptions to increase the limits and help more people qualify. So after each one, I'll just give sort of the purpose of each one. So Article F, purpose is to allow for blind people to have a $500 exemption off real estate taxes.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Yes, could you say that again? Sorry, we had some trouble hearing.
The purpose of Article F is to implement an exemption off real estate taxes and the amount of $500 for blind individuals.
So an exemption of $500 for qualifying blind persons. All right. Since you're ready to vote, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and is unanimous. On to a motion under Article G, golf.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Assessors Chair Tim Good moves Article G as indicated in the motion printed on page 64 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. Select Board recommends this article.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to accept the provisions of Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C, relating to increasing the real estate tax exemption for qualifying seniors, reduce the eligibility age to 65, and to make exclusions from the whole estate as outlined on page 64 of the voter's booklet. It requires a majority vote.
Yes, so Article G would reduce the eligibility age from 70 to 65 and increase the award amount from 500 to 1,000. The third portion of this, the exclude the value, this is already intact. It's just, they're sort of reiterating. We don't include the whole estate when we're calculating.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Arsenian, seeing no one else. Mr. Arsenian?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Most of us are seniors, so this should appeal. But the devil is in the details. Who are the certain qualifying seniors? That's in the second line. And then in the third and fourth lines, quoting, to exclude from the determination of the whole estate the value of up to 3 dwelling units and so forth. I don't know what estate we're talking about, not mine. But anyway, are we granting tax exemptions to people who have 3 dwelling units and are renting 2 of them? I guess that is the first question. And why would you want to do that? Maybe I misunderstand what's there, but that's what it looks like. If you own a house with 3 units and are renting 2 of them, you're raking in the money. And it's the poor tenants who we ought to be concerned for, not you, the fat cat landlord. So If this is a tax exemption, I think it should go as the one that we just voted for blind people to those who are, if not needy, at least unfortunate. People who own rental housing and are renting it out are not the unfortunate. And I think the assessors, or maybe it's the treasurer, here I'm ignorant, should explain to us how it works. If we grant tax exemptions to people, we still have to make up the entire sum that is required. So if some pay less, the rest of us pay more. Have I got that wrong? Please explain how that works.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. And just before we go anywhere, just to be clear, this does not apply to commercial properties. Would the assessors like to comment on anything to answer any of the inquiry that was raised?
Sure. I can assure you that certainly not a three-family is not. You have to report all of your income, so clearly rental income would need to be reported, and that would not be accepted. So
And
no.
is that what the word qualifying means? Qualifying in terms of a certain income level?
Yes, they're income-based exemptions.
All right. And it has to be a primary domicile, as I understand it. Further discussion? Yes, ma'am. Ms. McKenna?
Laurie McKenna, 31 High Street. So tell us, what is the qualifying level? Who's a qualifying senior?
So currently, the regulations for income, you would have to make $20,000 annually for single, and married is $30,000.
Oh, yeah, or less. That's the maximum. Is that right?
Correct.
Is that earned income, or does that include unearned income?
That's all earned income. There's a list of requirements that you have to provide, financial documents. So all of your earned income.
So that excludes things like dividends?
No.
Okay, thanks.
That's included. Interest, dividends, pensions, any income that you have to report.
Ms. Donnelly, did that take care of what you were going to address? All right. Mr. Arsenian.
I'm still not clear about what it means about the 3 dwelling units. If you make the exemption, the income qualification, I would find it very hard to imagine how you could do that if you're renting out dwelling units at anything like market rates. But leave that out of it for a moment. Supposing you're the owner and there are 3 units and you're renting out 2, are you going to qualify for this tax exemption? And my question about meeting up the whole sum, that is required on the taxes to be raised was not answered. So if this is approved, are those of us who do not get the exemptions picking up the slack? 2 questions.
I'll answer the first one about the 3-family. There's a single family, a 2-family, and a 3-family. All of those, if you don't qualify by income, they look at the whole estate. The value of your home, whether it's a single, double, or triple family, is not included. So there's nothing about earning rental income that is in this. And no, you are not paying the offset. This comes out of our overlay fund. So any exemptions or abatements come through that overlay, and we are reimbursed by the state a certain percentage for these exemptions.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, I sense you are ready to vote. Again, the question before you is whether to accept Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C, relating to real estate tax exemptions, is outlined on page 64 of the voter's booklet. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. I'm going to do the clickers so there's no question here. All right, I'm going to do it again. Same motion under Article G on accepting Section 5, Clause 41C on real estate tax exemptions. All those in favor of the motion, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed, press 2 or B for no. Ready, vote, now, 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 now. And that motion carries 82% to 18%, and the numerical count is 140 to 30. Thank you, and on to Article Hotel.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Assessors Chair Tim Good moves Article H as indicated in the motion printed on page 64 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. Select.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you now is whether to accept Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A relating to tax deferral and recovery agreements for qualifying seniors and increasing the applicable circuit breaker income limit as set forth on page 64 of the voters booklet. This requires a majority vote. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Article H, the purpose of this one, again, is to increase the income limit to match the state circuit breaker and just provide another option to assist our seniors with increasing taxes. 41A is a tax deferral, so essentially you can choose to defer however much you want, and then there's a percentage rate when the house sells that it's paid back at. So this, again, is just trying to align with the circuit breaker and allow more people to qualify if they choose to go that route.
And is the qualifying parameters the same as under the motion for Article G?
Correct. They are currently the ones I discussed about the 20,000 maximum and the 30,000.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. On to Article India.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Assessors Chair Tim Good moves Article I as indicated in the motion printed on page 65 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. Select Board recommends approval.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to accept Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22nd, I, or 1, relating to annual increases in certain real estate tax exemptions based on the Consumer Price Index for a given year, as described on page 64 of the voters booklet. This requires a majority vote. Yes, ma'am.
Article I is focusing on our disabled veterans. This would allow, and again, an increase in exemption amounts. They based it on the COLA increases, which are determined by the Department of Revenue, and that essentially is based on the CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. So again, just it would help allow these exemptions to increase and offset some inflation.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it is unanimous. We're now going to draw the next article. Article J. Do you want to draw the next one? And we're going to draw the one after J. Okay, we will go to Article J, then, yep. B. Okay, so we're going to go to a motion under Article J, then we're going to go to K. After that, we're going to be going to motions under Articles B, C, D, and E. So, Article J, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Member Ross Brackett moves Article J as indicated in the motion printed on page 65 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Planning Board recommend approval.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to accept as public roads certain roadways known as Highview Road and Briney Way as laid out by the Select Board and as referenced on page 65 of the voters booklet, and to authorize the Select Board to acquire related easements. This requires a majority vote. Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, this is the formal portion of the process where the town would vote to accept these two roadways as public ways. The town and the DPW has been working with the residents on these two roadways for quite some time. At the September town meeting, the body at that time approved a borrowing authorization for $400,000, which is subject to public acceptance, which would be this vote. The total cost for doing this work, the total cost of upgrading the road for the town to accept it, is borne by the individuals who live on that road. It is assessed through a betterment if it is approved, so it is not a cost that charges to the town. It is something that is assessed back to the individuals. When the road is redone and it's accepted by the town, it then becomes a public way. We are working our way through that process. We have checked a number of the boxes along the way, and we are at the point now where it is for the town's consideration for acceptance.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Discussion, Ms. Wilkinson.
Great. Thank you. Sarah Wilkinson, 23 Highview Road. Good morning. This is the final step in what has been a wildly exciting neighborhood project that the residents of Briney and Highview have been working on for 2 years. Paving. Enormous thanks to the DPW for their cooperation and efforts working with our entire neighborhood on making this happen. This is the final step, as at last fall's town meeting, we approved the betterment. Briney and Highview Road have over 40 properties. They are driven on by thousands of cars per year, are used by school buses and road races. They contain a large drain pipe from the south end that the DPW services weekly, and it acts as a detour when Thatcher Road in Gloucester is closed. If approved, this article approves the town's acceptance of the road, but only after the roadway is completely done, as the town administrator said, at our expense. We are set to have this work in the next few weeks. Approval of this is a win for the town. The town has been plowing and caring for Briney and Highview for years. If we accept the road, the neighbors pay to have the road made brand new, literally. I'm not sure how many of you have driven up Highview lately. And then we will get Chapter 90 funds for it going forward. Thank you again to the town administrator and DPW for all of your efforts. This has been a great example of the town working with the whole neighborhood to better life for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson. Sorry. Discussion? Yes, sir.
Eugene Hayes, 20 Highview Road. I just have a question. There is a drainage easement that runs through my property. Would the town be responsible for that as well as part of this process?
I'll see if I can get an answer for you on that. Sure. Discussion, Mr. Arsenian. And I'm not going to forget, we will get back to that. Hold on 1 second, Mr. Arsenian, we'll get right to you. Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, through you, one of the next steps after this, should it be accepted, would be going through and having a number of easements signed off on, so the town would assume those easements through the final steps of this process.
Thank you. Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. The residents of these roads are not to be blamed in any way. They're doing what's right for them. They're going through the process that the state set up. It's for their benefit. We, the town meeting, acting on behalf of the town of Rockport, need to think of what would be beneficial for the town as a whole. I move to refer the matters raised by the main motion to the Department of Public Works Commissioners to study the costs and benefits of accepting as public roadways these roadways and any and all private roadways, and report their conclusions to the Select Board prior to the 2027 annual town meeting.
All right, that's a motion to refer. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. The question before you now is whether to refer the matters raised under the motion we were discussing under Article J to the Department of Public Works Commissioners to study costs and benefits of accepting public roadways, including these roadways, and any and all private roadways, and report back to the Select Board before the next annual town meeting. That's the question before you. Floor is open to discussion on the motion to refer. Mr. Arsenian as the moving party.
Thank you. Looking at the two roads, you're looking at a photograph of 3 square inches of the skin of the elephant. You have no idea what the elephant looks like. There are over 90 private roads, and some of them we may wish to accept a benefit to the town, to all of us, and some of them we may not wish to accept. Maybe we accept all of them, maybe we accept none of them. We should know what we're doing before we leap and find out what it's going to cost. you'll be told that we get money from the state on the basis of the number of miles of public roads. And indeed we do. The town administrator explained the formula from the state. Ungodly complicated, 3 different things differently weighted. You do indeed get more money for additional public roads. You're also stuck with maintaining them from now until doomsday. And it would make sense, since apparently we believe in planning, to know what we're looking at, the whole problem. And it will not hurt the people who have these private roads, as they have said they've got their roads in proper shape and the town is planning them. And we should be concerned for the common good for all of us and find out about all the private roads before we move forward on any of them.
Thank you, Mr. Arsenian. Mr. Reed?
You know, private roads and the acceptance of private roads is not an easy process. Number one, the way the process should work, the town shouldn't approach the private road owners. The private owners should approach the town, whether we're interested in having that road as a public road. And then there's a lot that goes into it, and it gets into layout of the road. Can we even accept it in the sense of the layout? There are lanes in this town that are considered private roads that just can't be accepted. So it's not simple, but it has to start with the road owners wanting it to become a public road. There's also 137 private roads in Rockport. That's a lot of roads. Some of them are about 2 houses long, the length of the road. We put some numbers on it, there has to be 300 feet, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom line is it's not a simple process, and it should start with the homeowners, period. So I don't know how this helps us to look at this. You know, we plow 76 or so of those 137s. And the process started because these roads some of them have been neglected for years. The town has been plowing them, but our equipment is getting beat up on some of these roads. So we've gone back to the road owners and said, here's what you need to do for the town to be able to continue to plow. And the roads we're hearing about tonight, they chose to look at, can the town accept it? They have to do a lot as well. As you heard, they're bringing the roads up to public condition. So this really doesn't help us. And I'm not sure how much of a problem there is, other than the fact that we've got to get some of the private roads into a little better condition so that they can continue to be plowed. Thank you.
All right, on the financials, I'm just going to turn to the town administrator, and then we're going to get to you, Ms. Lawton.
Mr. Moderator, through you regarding the financial impact to the current residents. So the town engaged with the contractor. They gave us the price at the last September town meeting, and the contractor is willing to hold the price for this season. They will not hold the price if this project is delayed, which will have an impact on the residents on that road. We do not know what the price is, but it certainly will be more than the $400,000 that is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Ms. Lawton.
Yes, Monica Lawton, 11 Story Street. I do not have a stake in this issue whatsoever. I live on a nice public way that's well taken care of. But I also always think about the arguments over the course of time that the many people who live on private roads feel they should have public services that their taxes pay for, just like the rest of us. So I don't think we can look at this selfishly about the impact on the town in general. I think that the private roads ought to be viewed as having a right to be upgraded and accepted by the town, but it is on the owners of those private ways to meet the requirements, to go through the process, and if they do that, they have a right to be accepted by the town and fall under our public ways. So I think we need to take a more generous approach to this. Certainly, they have to take care of the roads so that they are in condition to be accepted by the town, to minimize the impact to the town.
Thank you, Ms. Lawton. And just to clarify, the question before you right now, is whether to take the motion and not act on it and instead send it back to the DPW to report back sometime between now and the next annual town meeting. That's the narrow question before you right now. If you vote yes on that, then it goes to the DPW and we don't do anything about accepting these roads. If you vote no on the referral, we will then go back to dealing with whether to accept the public roads. Anybody like me to clarify that? Okay. Ms. Medea.
Thank you. Jamie Medea, Holbrook Court. I do not support this amendment, and I do support the original unamended Article J. I do not support the amendment because it refers to a study of any and all private roadways and reporting back. That's a lot of study for over 100 different, minimum 100 different roadways, a lot of different factual circumstances. And respectfully, this town meeting body has a tendency sometimes to refer things for more study, and the costs just get higher and higher and higher. That's the reason I don't support this article. The reason I do, so I don't have to stand up again, and I'm not mad, I'm just cold. The reason I do support the other amendment is I believe in paying for what we use. We use those two roads. We use them as if they were public ways. I myself used to park on Briny Way before I had a residential parking permit to park to go to the beach. So I think I should pay for what I use, and we use those as public ways, so let's adopt them as public ways as requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medea. Yes, ma'am.
Claire Harper, 24 Highview Road. I'm also against Arsenio's motion. My street is Craters of the Moon. It's been like that for years. It's taken almost 2 years just to get to this point. And those potholes are so big we can barely get to our house. I wanted to bring up, other towns don't have private roads. I have a friend in Missoula. They all pay as a community to maintain their town. And it's weird in Rockport. We have 2 highways that are paid for, like where Arsenio lives. He lives on a highway. He never has to worry about someone coming and asking him for money to pave that road because the state does. Rockport has public roads. Those people also don't have to worry. And then they have these private roads. And there's a reason why there are so many private roads, and it's not clear. We've been looking into this, not just our street, but many, many other people living on private roads like Eden Road that's a throughway, wondering how it ever got designated as this in the first place. But that mystery was never solved. As the town goes through this process, they are very thoughtful about what roads they can accept. They are very careful about how to designate a road that qualifies as private or qualifies as public or will remain private. This is not, I don't know, Arsenio makes it sound like there hasn't been any thought put into this. So I just ask, and I know this is not the motion, I ask you to turn down this motion and I ask you to vote so we can proceed and get our street paved.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Hi, Tom Barrett, 1 Cedar Ave. I have a question for the DPW. I live on a private road, and so I'd like someone from the DPW address what other obligations the town might be taking on with a public road versus the private road. So it's not just plowing, talking about water, sewer, tree removal, etc. If someone could address that.
Yes, sir. Sure. The question was, as I understood it, sir, you can correct me if I'm wrong, what other obligations are incurred by the town by accepting a public road? Do I have your question correct?
Yes.
All right. Yes, sir.
So from a utility standpoint, if there's already existing utilities on the roadway, those utilities are not technically part of the public roadway. They are part of the utility infrastructure, and the town would have, if it's part of the like mainline water lines, mainline sewer, the town already has obligation to those systems. Again, there are a few private water and private sewer systems, but that's not involved with the public roadway itself. Did I answer your question?
Well, I guess my understanding was that on a private road, the homeowners were responsible for upgrading the water and sewer. If it becomes a public road, who now has responsibility for maintaining the sewer line through that road?
So again, being a public roadway does not mean that it's necessarily technically a public sewer or public water. I guess, and I could say it the other way. We currently have infrastructure, utility-wise, that is on private ways that the town, maintain. So we already have existing infrastructure on private ways that are already publicly owned, so to speak, or that they are publicly owned. I can't think of a street, but we do have them. So utilities are separate from the public roadway. The only thing that would be included in the public roadway is the infrastructure would be drainage, stormwater, not sewer.
Okay, thank you, For the record, that was Mr. Schifolo from the Department of Public Works. Ms. Donnelly.
Yes, Denise Donnelly, 72 Pigeon Hill Street. The homeowners on these roads spent 2 years following the process that the town set forth for them. And I think it's unfair at this point in the game, after 2 years of work and with an estimate from a paver, to change the rules. So they did what they were asked to do. They followed the path that the town set forth, and I oppose this motion for that reason.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
John Penaloza, 8 McKay's Drive. It's a two-part question. I'd like to know if the town has to abide by some state or federal standard for the public roads in Rockport, and if these roads conform to that state or federal standard that we maintain our roads to or build our public roads to.
All right, and keep in mind, the question before you is referral back to the DPW. That's what's in front of us right now. When we're disposed of that, we're going to go back to discussing whether to accept those roadways as public.
I understand. This is referent to that, though, right?
What's that? To referring? Okay, all right, thank you.
My question is pertinent to that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll see if we get some answers for you on that. Thank you. Ms. Wilkinson.
I'd like to move the question.
All right. And we're going to return to debate on the main issue. All right, the question before you is whether to refer the matters raised by the motion made under Article J back to the Department of Public Works to study costs and benefits of accepting as public roadways, these roadways and any and all private roadways, and report their conclusions back to the Select Board prior to the next annual town meeting. This requires a majority vote. I'm going to use electronic means on this. So I'll say it again. We are voting on Mr. Arsenian's motion to refer the whole question back to the Department of Public Works. Yeah. Oh, it's to move the question. Sorry. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Been a long day. Sorry. You're right. The motion is to thank God for my sisters here. The question is whether to end debate on the motion to refer. So the motion to move the question has been made and seconded and is in order. We're going to vote on that. It requires a 2/3 vote and it's not debatable. if you wish to continue debating, you're going to vote no. If you wish to end debate on the motion to refer, you're going to press 1 or A for aye. If you want to end debate on the motion to refer, you're going to press 1 or A for aye. If you want to continue to discuss whether to refer, you're going to vote 2 or B for no. Now, would anybody like me to clarify that question since I got it straightened out? All right. All those in favor of ending debate on the motion to refer, press 1 or A for aye. All opposed to ending debate on the motion to refer, press 2 or B for no. Voting now, 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 now. And that motion carries 95% to 5%, and the numerical count is 165 to 9. Now we return to vote on whether to refer the original motion back to the Department of Public Works. So the question now is whether to refer the matters from the main motion on accepting these 2 roads back to the Public Works commissioners to study costs and benefits and to report to the select board at next town meeting. Would anybody like me to clarify that? All right. If you wish to refer the main motion on accepting those 2 roads and study the costs and benefits of accepting all public roads back to the DPW, you will press 1 or A for aye. If you oppose it, you will press 2 or B for no. Ready, vote now, 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 now. Clock is ticking. And that motion fails 80% to 20%, and the numerical count is 139 to 34. So now we're back to discussion on the motion whether to accept Briney Way and Highview Road as public ways as laid out by the Select Board and referenced on page 65 of the voter's booklet, and to authorize the Select Board to acquire related easements. That is now the question before us. It calls for a majority vote. Ms. McKenna.
Hi, Laurie McKenna, 31 High Street. I'm generally in favor of this article, but I wonder why. Are we expecting to purchase these easements? The phrase there is to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain. I hope we're not purchasing these things.
We are not, and if I am wrong, someone will strike me dead with lightning, but we are not purchasing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arsenian, there's someone behind you who hasn't spoken yet, I think. Oh, you've both spoken. All right, Mr. Arsenian, go ahead.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I object to what Denise Donnelly said about changing the rules. The rules on accepting the roads come from the state, and we could not change them if we wanted them. Many things that come from the state are illogical and unfortunate, but I don't know the particulars of these. At any rate, we are stuck with them. When it was presented to us last year to appropriate the money, it was made clear that it was a 2-step process and that we were not committing ourselves to accepting the roads. So we've gone halfway across the river. Now we're asked to go the rest of the way. I get the sense of it that we're going to, and I think we're making a mistake. Not in terms of these roads, but in terms of not knowing the whole problem and where we're headed.
Okay, and again, the only question right now is these 2 roads. Ms. Donnelly.
Yes, I ask that we please move the question.
All right. The motion to end debate and move is there a second? Moved and seconded. The motion to end debate is moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to end debate on the motion on Article J, whether to accept Briney Way and Highview Road. If that motion passes, we will then immediately go to vote on the underlying motion. If it fails, we'll go back to discussing the motion. Anybody need clarification on that? All right. All those in favor of ending debate, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed to ending debate, press 2 or B for no. Voting now, 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 now. And that motion carries 94% to 6%, and the numerical count is 165 to 10. We now immediately go to voting on whether to accept the two roadways, the main motion under Article J, which requires a majority vote. All those in favor of accepting the two roadways embraced by the motion under Article J, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed, press 2 or B for no. Vote now, 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 now. Clock is now ticking. Vote now. And that motion carries 90% to 10%, and the numerical vote is 163 to 19. I believe we're on to a motion under Article K. Is that right? Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, Town Clerk Melanie Waddell moves Article K as indicated in the motion printed on page 66 of the April 11, 2026 Voters Booklet. Select Board recommends.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 53, Section 9A, relating to filing deadlines and requirements for public office nomination papers, as set forth on page 65 of the Voters Booklet. This requires a majority vote. Ms. Waddell.
Thank you, Melanie Waddell, Town Clerk. By accepting this MGL, past practice would remain the same, and it would bring us into statutory compliance. Candidates would need to obtain nomination papers 48 weekday hours prior to the deadline to submit them to my office. Whereas by not accepting this MGL, candidates could obtain nomination papers until 5 p.m. on the same day they are due to the Board of Registrars for certification. So the reason for this request is for planning purposes, both for myself and the candidates. It really just moves the deadline back 48 hours. So somebody isn't asking for nomination papers on the same day that they're due. It's just for planning purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waddell. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries, and we are on to We are on to a motion under Article B, which will be followed by C, D, and E. Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, DPW Commissioner Chair Bruce Reed moves Article B as indicated in the motion printed on page 61 of the April 11, 2026 Voters Booklet.
Moved and seconded?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you now is whether to expend $288,969.35 or such other sum as available under Mass General Laws, Chapter 90. This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it's unanimous. Article C.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Member Laura Evans moves Article C as indicated in the motion printed on page 62 of the April 11, 2026 Voters Booklet. Select Board and Finance Committee recommend.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to transfer from free cash sums for Action Incorporated, Hawk, Senior Care, and Open Door. As set forth on page 62 of the Voters Booklet, it requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and it's unanimous. On to Article Delta.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Vice Chair Don Southard moves Article D as indicated in the motion printed on page 63 of the April 11, 2026 Voters Booklet. The Select Board and Finance Committee recommend.
Care, seconded.
Moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to transfer from free cash sums to stabilization and trust funds as set forth on page 63 of the Voters Booklet. This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion? All right, Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I'm all for it, but I think whenever we're asked to put money into these funds, we should be told how much is already there. Wouldn't you like to know how much you've got in your checking account? That sort of thing. And I think the Finance Committee, and much credit to them, have got the figures there. I can't find the page number. I seem to think 41 or 43, but please give us the figures that are now in these three accounts. And we're putting $100,000 into the OPEB trust fund. Those are benefits, health benefits for people now retired, town employees. And I remember reading somewhere else in the report that the goal there was $40 million. Well, $100,000 a year will all be long dead before we get there. Can we please have the figures in the three accounts?
I believe they're in the report, but I'm going to ask if...
43.
Page 43?
Page 43.
So I believe that information is on page 43 of the Finance Committee's report. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. The question again is whether to transfer from free cash sums to stabilization and trust funds as set forth on the voter's booklet on page 63. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries. And before we get to the next motion, Madam Clerk, if you would draw what's going to, the next one is going to be E. What's coming next? Yeah, that was unanimous. After we get through Article E, we will go to Article P. And then A and O. And I believe that's all she wrote. Yeah, okay. All right, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Assessors Chair Tim Good moves Article E as indicated in the motion printed on page 63 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet. The Select Board and the Finance Committee recommend approval.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to transfer from free cash $75,000 for assessor evaluation, revaluation expenses. This requires a majority vote. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries and is unanimous. On to Article P.
Mr. Moderator, lead petitioner Christine Downing moves Article P as indicated in the motion printed on page 81 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet.
All right, the question before you is whether to adopt the resolution set forth on page 81 of the voters booklet. This requires a majority vote. I want to speak for a moment because I've had questions over the last week or so about what all of this might mean in terms of the procedure. So let me just take a moment and I'll try to be efficient. The motion under Article P relates to a citizen petition and it is a non-binding resolution. Let me take a moment to explain what that means. I've been asked that several times. First, what is a citizen petition? Under Chapter 39, Section 10, the Select Board, quote, shall insert in the warrant for the annual meeting all subjects, the insertion of which shall be requested of them in writing by 10 or more registered voters. We've had citizen petition articles at many annual town meetings. 10 voters submit the petition, and if it is in legal form and submitted timely, the Select Board must include it with the warrant. They have no discretion in that regard. Second, why is it non-binding? I've been asked this a lot over the last 3 years. A non-binding resolution, it's the Lady Gaga rule. It's born that way. A non-binding resolution is a non-binding resolution because either it addresses subjects which are beyond the reach of town meeting or municipal government, or two, it's drafted to be non-binding. So Article P is on the warrant because the statutorily required number of voters submitted it in writing and on time to the Select Board, which mandates that it be included on the warrant. It is non-binding because it is a resolution expressing a request to the legislative branch of the United States federal government, and the actions or inactions of the United States Congress are not controlled by municipal governments. And then finally, if you'll bear with me, I respectfully request that we all remember what I mentioned at the start of the meeting. Let us treat this subject like all subjects, with civility and decorum. You can make your points, and you can make them with vigor and strength, without attacking anyone personally and without impugning motives and personalities, especially, please, of one another. When you attend town meeting, you certainly are a voter, but you are more than a voter. You are a member of a legislative deliberative body, and all legislative deliberative bodies have rules of civility and decorum, not to stifle debate, but to promote a productive discussion. Let me just offer this suggestion. If you craft your remarks to persuade those who may disagree with you, or who may be undecided, rather than to bolster those who already agree with you, we are more likely to have a civil, respectable exchange of views. I meant what I said in my welcome letter. Out here on our 7 square miles of rock, I still believe that we are all neighbors in the best sense of that word. All right, Ms. Downey.
Hello, I think I'm last on the list here. I'm here today to ask you to vote yes on Article P. To quote Heather Cox Richardson, noted historian and professor at Boston College, tyranny from within demands that we declare ourselves, rise to this moment, speak out, unify, and recover our constitutional government from the expanding desolation we're witnessing daily. To do this, communities can introduce, debate, and pass a resolution of condemnation and create local ownership of the big arguments. We can do this here in Rockport by voting yes on Article P. Article P is part of a grassroots resolution project. Across the country, communities are declaring their support of the Constitution and imploring our elected leaders to exercise their constitutional authority to stop the illegal or unconstitutional actions of President Trump. Last fall, several towns came together to form the North Shore Resolutions Project. Since then, Ipswich, Lynn, Manchester, Marblehead, and Rockport have submitted resolutions. Others are in discussion. Salem passed a resolution a month ago. Boston, Brookline, East Hampton, North Adams, Shrewsbury, Stowe and Andover's, among others, have passed similar resolutions. I found a model for this, by the way, in Ipswich, and it was written by the town historian. So, this is Article P. I'm going to read it. Article P, the Rockport resolution asks you to support our U.S. Constitution and the separation of powers, and urging Congress to exercise its legislative branch authority and oversight powers to provide a check on unlawful or unconstitutional actions by the President of the United States. Whereas the U.S. Constitution is the basis of our democratic republic and civil society, and whereas the first 3 branches of the U.S. Constitution establish 3 separate but co-equal branches of government, and this separation of powers between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches was designed to ensure a system of checks and balances. And whereas Donald J. Trump and his administration have shown a blatant disregard for the separation of powers by withholding congressionally approved funds, dismantling congressionally created departments and agencies, unilaterally imposing tariffs and duties, deploying military troops on American soil against civilian populations, attempting to deny birthright citizenship guaranteed by the Constitution, ordering investigations of political enemies, and unlawfully replacing U.S. attorneys who failed to carry out said orders, launching military operations against sovereign nations without congressional consultation or approval, threatening military action against a fellow NATO member in violation of congressionally approved treaties, and deploying armed federal agents to states without consent or coordination to carry out unnecessarily broad and aggressive immigration enforcement actions that have resulted in the unlawful detention, injury, and death of U.S. citizens who were exercising their basic constitutional rights. And whereas in the judgment of this assembled town meeting, President Trump has repeatedly usurped legislative and judicial branch authority in direct violation of the separation of powers enshrined in our Constitution. And whereas, as James Madison wrote in the Federalist, paper number 47, the accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary in the same hands, whether of one or a few or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. And so now, therefore, be it resolved that this duly assembled town meeting as the legislative body of the town of Rockport, Massachusetts, respectfully calls upon the Congress of the United States to exercise its legislative branch authority and oversight powers to provide a check on the unlawful or unconstitutional actions by the President of the United States. This ends Article P. Since I submitted the Rockport resolution, the list of illegal actions has grown daily. Unauthorized, President Trump invaded the sovereign country of Venezuela and abducted their president. Since then, he's bombed Iran, triggered an expanding war in the Mideast, and has committed us to boots on the ground. On Tuesday, he threatened to wipe out an entire civilization. As our country faces an historic challenge to its democratic institutions, North Shore residents are using this process that began in the mid-18th century when our leaders of our towns and cities came together to resist British tyranny by passing resolves that condemned the actions of the British Parliament and the King. With this vote, we have an opportunity to unite with other communities across the country, to speak together and restore balance to our government in this 250th anniversary year. The time is now to take a stand and reclaim our democratic republic. Please vote yes on Article P. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Downing. Discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Ring.
Jonathan Ring, 9 Pools Lane. And by the way, this is a red Rockport hat, in case anybody thought it was a different kind of red hat, circa 2001. I love this hat. I would urge you to vote no on this resolution. I'm not going to try to persuade you to disagree with the contents of it. I'm pretty sure that many of you, probably most of you, probably agree with the sentiments of the resolution. What I would prevail upon you is to realize that this is basically, I'm sorry to say, is a partisan resolution. I say that because the resolution is also supported and drafted by Swing Left, which in its mission statement is to elect Democrats across swing districts, which Rockport isn't. And again, many of you, probably most of you, probably agree with that idea as well, and I'm not going to try to dissuade you from that. What I will say is the town meeting should be nonpartisan. It should be a place where we all come together to solve problems and to come together as a community. And it shouldn't be for partisan action, and this resolution is for partisan action. This place is for people of both parties, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, independent, regardless of presidential preference. And this resolution kind of goes outside of the scope of what we're able to solve. All it will do is it will create further division amongst us as neighbors. It'll cause us to be people for Trump, against Trump, for Democrats, for Republicans, against each other. It'll cause us to be attacking each other rather than coming together as a community. So I would ask a no vote, not because you can agree with the sentiments of the resolution, but let's not be divisive and let's come together as a nonpartisan community and as neighbors in Rockport. So that's what I would urge you to do and to vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ring. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Linda Meditz, 98 Main Street. I should actually claim something for myself. It's Dr. Meditz. I have a PhD in American history from the University of Connecticut. Go Huskies, they came so close. And so I've spent many years of my life as a student of the origins of this country. My dissertation is in the process of being published under the aegis of Yale University. So I have a clue or two about whence I speak. I'm not even going to wander into all of that. I'm going to keep my comments very local. And I'm going to say, if I'm to be honest, as a fairly new resident of this town, that my heart is broken today, because as a Republican, I will own it. I am now the enemy in this town. Most of you don't know what that feels like because you don't have to worry about it in a blue town, in a blue state, in a blue part of the country. But I'm going to turn and face everyone here and say it's not a pleasant feeling. We are your neighbors. We work here. We pay taxes here. I bought a pretty little tiny house here that I could afford, and I am pouring heart and soul into it. It's a piece of the history of this town, and I care about it. And so I ask you what purpose this serves for this town and this town meeting. Think of all the things we've discussed today, everything from public roadways to funding, to giving tax exemptions to blind individuals, all kinds of things which evince a kind of care for this place and a commitment and devotion to it. It didn't matter that we didn't disagree. What mattered is that we shared something so special. I feel so privileged to live here. Every day, to me, it remains a thrill that I can see the ocean going to the post office. I don't take it for granted. But now I have to be on guard because, oh my gosh, I'm a red person. And because of that, I support a president flagrantly violating the Constitution. I'm not even going to take the time to go through all of this. Take a look at the War Powers Act, if you care to. No boots have been committed to the ground. That's just a lie. And so much of this could be subject to interrogation. There's no time. I'm sure my time must be almost gone. But all I'm saying to you is that is it the business of town meeting to divide us into the good people and the bad people, into those who back the president and those who don't, the good neighbors and the enemies? That hasn't been the spirit of this place up to this moment, and I doubt you really want it to be going forward. So even if you support everything in this, I plead with you, search your soul. Is that where you want this town to go? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. If we can avoid using, I don't know if you meant it against anybody in particular, but if we can avoid lie about one another in the room, I'd appreciate it. And it may have been directed at more large-scale concepts, but let's just avoid that if we could. But thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Paul Seavey, 11 Marmion Way. I think the two previous speakers have made some excellent points. And in ordinary times, I'd probably agree with them. But this is
Sir,
not.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. It may just be me, but maybe you could get a little closer.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Seavey. I live at 11 Marmion Way. And I think the two previous speakers have made some excellent points. And ordinarily, I would agree with them. But we are not living in ordinary times. We are living in times that none of us could ever possibly believe would happen. The things that are happening are well illustrated in the Article P, and I think under these circumstances, I would definitely vote for its passage. We need to speak out, individually and corporately.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Charlie Seavey, 19 Ridgewood Road. I'm the liberal Seavey brother. I'm speaking as a veteran of 9 years active service in the U.S. military. 6 of those years were overseas. I served in wars both hot and cold. I'm going to repeat some words out of the oath I took when I entered the service as a wee lad out of Rockport all those years ago. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. In the spirit of that oath, I fully support Article P and hope that we pass it.
Thank you, Mr. Seavey. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is David Narkowitz, 12 Ruthven Way. I rise in strong support of Article P. Communities around the North Shore and across Massachusetts and the nation are going on record in support of our Constitution and the separation of powers, and calling on our leaders in Washington to restore the checks and balances that have been the cornerstone of our system of government. Our current president has steamrolled that system of checks and balances and attempted to concentrate all powers in the executive branch, including powers specifically delegated to Congress. The front page of today's Gloucester Daily Times provides a perfect illustration of this issue. Headline, report, employers paying the cost of Trump's tariffs. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the sole power to impose tariffs. Just over a year ago, President Trump declared a national emergency and began arbitrarily imposing tariffs on foreign nations. American consumers, businesses, farmers, and our entire economy bore the brunt of those ill-conceived tariffs, and the leadership of Congress completely acquiesced. The story in today's paper estimates that those tariffs cost Massachusetts businesses almost $200,000 on average. It took a group of small businesses suing the president for the case to reach the Supreme Court, which found the president's emergency tariffs unconstitutional. In his majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts pointed out that the framers very purposely gave Congress, not the president, the power to impose taxes and tariffs because they had literally just fought a revolution over taxation without representation. This is just one of many examples of how our president has usurped the powers of Congress, and that list seemingly grows longer every day. The resolve clause of this resolution says one thing. It calls upon Congress to exercise its powers and authority to provide a check on unlawful or unconstitutional actions by the president. This is hardly a revolutionary concept, but it is a message we should and must send our elected leaders in support of our Constitution and the separation of powers. Please support Article P.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mary Mintz, 3 Highland Street. First of all, I'd like to thank Christine for putting this article in because I live every day with extreme anxiety, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling the same way. This article is not partisan, it's not decisive, it's really a sign of hope of people coming together because in this country, I believe in the U.S. Constitution. I believe in all levels of government. We have local, state, federal levels. We have equal branches on the federal level. Come on, folks, you can see that there is a real imbalance today. So I just want to end with that and say thank you very much. Please vote for this article.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan O'Keefe, 29 Jordan's Lane, and I'm asking you to please consider the importance to your neighbors about this article. I happen to be a Republican, very few of us in town, and I agree with the doctor who spoke a few moments ago that we are basically not included in a lot of things because of our political views. I implore you to consider the entire town's feelings. This warrant, I believe, is a local issue. I know you want to speak out about the Constitution and all of the other things, but there are an awful lot of us here and across the Commonwealth who don't agree, and I'm just asking you to please consider our feelings too. And I also ask you to please encourage yourself, try to encourage yourself to read and listen to diverse news articles, diverse news opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Monica Lawton, 11 Story Street. Certainly town meetings, the purpose of town meetings is to address local issues that we all care about. But as a docent at the KPN Museum, I give tours in Gloucester, and I was so surprised to learn myself in the days leading up to the Revolutionary War. It was the town meeting in Gloucester, which of course included Sandy Bay, that voted on the Stamp Act and voted on the Port Bill, and at the end of June in 1776 was called together to vote on a most important question, whether to endorse the Declaration of Independence. This was the town meeting held at the First Parish Church, which is today the site of the synagogue on Middle Street. Before the separation of church and state, it was the town meeting that voted on a very national issue. And that is how I view this. It is up to the people in the town to express their views on issues of government at all levels that in turn affect town meeting when you think about it. As far as the article itself, I too do not see it as partisan. I don't consider myself a Democrat at this time. I see it as a statement of facts, and they are facts which frighten me, quite frankly. And I see nothing wrong with people expressing that view so that it is heard loud and clear. So I would vote for a yes vote on Article P. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawton. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Carol Lundeen, 40 Stockholm Ave. I've never felt as much in my heart the Pledge of Allegiance as I have these last years. And I arrived late today, and if you'll indulge me, I'm going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you'd like to join me, I'm going to use my phone because I'm nervous. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I am in favor of Article P.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Amy Seabrook, 13 Curtis Street. I wish to welcome everyone in this room, always and forever, and to go from there. I don't happen to think that this is partisan myself, but I will respect you.
Thank you, Ms. Seabrook. Ms. Jackson.
Hi, I'm Victoria Jackson, 145 South Street, and as Benjamin Franklin said at the Constitutional Convention, I implore the aid of a power much greater than us because we are limited in our understanding. And I am going to try to address a couple of the comments that, the statements that are made against President Trump. And I would like to say I'm very unhappy with a lot of the things that he's doing. However, in regards to launching military action without congressional consultation, I do not believe that he acted in an unconstitutional manner in this. The Commander-in-Chief has authority which allows limited military action. The 2001 and 2002 authorization for use of military force has been used broadly, and every president since JFK, every president has done this. In fact, there is no president in the history of our country that has not done this, not one. Secondly, regarding the unilateral imposition of tariffs, this is a long-standing historical practice. Tariffs are a tool of foreign policy, and the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 authorizes the president to impose tariffs under defined conditions, such as national security. So the core issue in this is how much power does the president actually have in areas of taxation and trade? And legal scholars and policymakers disagree on this. Professionals, highly educated and intelligent minds do not agree.
So the fact that I'm even here addressing this is crazy because I don't have any sort of stature like they do. Regarding withholding congressionally approved funds, dismantling departments and agencies, ordering investigating of political enemies, the president has discretion and flexibility in how funds are spent. The president oversees agencies within the executive branch and can express views on investigations. These claims are about how much discretion exists in spending and enforcement, and the bottom line is there is no universally agreed upon legal answer. So it's really hard nowadays to get straight information. It's really difficult. It's hard for all of us. It takes a lot of time and energy. But I think that to make a statement, and I've only addressed a few of them.
Ms. Jackson, just for your planning, you're hitting 3 minutes. I can give you a little bit of leeway, but I've been watching the clock for
Thank you.
everybody.
Yep, I'll just wrap up. Just need a few seconds. I think it's really hard in this context to be able to say, yep, all these things are unconstitutional. There's a lot of information that needs to be considered. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Yes, ma'am.
Dawn Epstein, 5 Allen Avenue. I don't want to vote yes on Article P. I don't want to. I don't want to be standing here even discussing it. And yet here we are. And the reason I don't want to be here is I don't want us to be facing this unprecedented time when we have government that we don't trust and we think our neighbors don't trust us either. I am the descendant of a Revolutionary War patriot. My family has been long in the military. I serve in the government in some small capacity. I have taken this oath to defend the Constitution. And so I'm standing here because I'm trying to figure out personally whether this is an act of defending the Constitution. And I will say that reasonable people can disagree about reasonable matters of interpretation of the Constitution. I don't think we can be reasonable about calling for the death of another civilization. I don't think we can be reasonable about murdering our citizens in the street because they're protesting. And I don't see that reflected in this article specifically. I'd actually like to strike, and maybe I move that we strike the whereas President Donald Trump, et cetera, because we can argue about any one of those things as reasonable people. But what we can't argue about is that our government is not standing up and exercising its responsibility to defend the Constitution. And so I'm conflicted. I'm deeply conflicted about this article. What I'm not conflicted about, not for 1 minute, is whether or not my Republican neighbors should feel comfortable about talking with these differences of opinion with me, regardless of how I vote here, regardless of how you vote here. I think we are one of the most remarkable communities I've ever had the pleasure to live in. I love that we're having this conversation. I love that you've given me the opportunity to stand up and say that I'm here to defend the Constitution with my every being. I think it's important. I think it's critical. And that's why if I vote for this, and I will not know until I push the button what I'm going to do, it'll be to defend the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Claire Harper, 24 Highview Road. In my opinion, Article P is not a question of Democrats versus Republicans. We have to have a two-party system. This is what we're trying to defend. It's a declaration that Rockport supports democracy. We are against tyranny, just as our country's founders were when they fought in the American Revolutionary War for a republic. We want to support having a republic. We want to support being able to share different opinions and not be afraid. That's what this is about, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Amy Oakes, 18 Jewett Street. I propose that we move the question.
All right. Second? Moved and seconded. The motion to end debate or move the question is in order. Again, it's non-debatable, and it requires a 2/3 vote. If you want to end discussion on the motion under Article P, you will press 1 or A for aye. If you oppose ending discussion on Article P, you will press 2 or B for no. Does anyone wish me to clarify what we're about to vote on? All right. All those in favor of ending discussion, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed, press 2 or B for no. Voting now, 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 now. It's counting down. Vote now, now, now. That carries 92% to 8%, and the numerical count is 157 to 13. We now immediately go to vote on Article P, the motion under Article P, excuse me. The question before you is whether to adopt the resolution set forth on page 81 of the voter's booklet. It requires a majority vote. If you wish to adopt the resolution, press 1 or A for aye. If you oppose adopting the resolution, press 2 or B for no. Does anybody need me to clarify what we're voting on? Speak up now. All right. All those in favor, press 1 or A for aye. All those opposed to the resolution, press 2 or B for no. Voting now, 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 now. It's counting down. Vote now. The resolution is adopted 84% to 16%. The numerical count is 140 to 27, and we will go on to a motion under, I believe, Article A. And hold on.
Mr. Moderator, Select Board Chair Paul Murphy moves Article A as indicated in the motion printed on page 61 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet.
All right, before I restate that motion, I do want to thank all the speakers, and I mean all of them on both sides, for a very civil, informed discussion, and I think our legislative leaders could take a page out of your book. Well done. And also, there is lunch in the cafeteria, so if you happen to be walking out, go get a sandwich, or hang on after we're done and go get a sandwich, because they've done a great job making some food for all of you. All right. Moved and seconded. The question before you is whether to accept town reports in the annual town report. It requires a majority vote. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That passes and it's unanimous. On to Article O.
Mr. Moderator, Tom Meekus moves Article O as indicated in the motion printed on page 80 of the April 11, 2026 voters booklet.
Moved and seconded. The question is whether to accept the report of the Ad Hoc Water Committee and extend the term of the committee. It requires a majority vote. Mr. Mikus.
Mr. Moderator, distinguished guests, citizens of Rockport, the state of our water supply is strong. The DPW has successfully located and repaired many of the leaks in the distribution system. As a result, there is less demand to draw from our water supplies, and this brings us back from the brink of having to worry about exceeding our permit level of how much water we can withdraw. There is yet some restriction on water usage, not depending specifically on our own supply levels, which are around 90% now. But because of the way our permit is structured, it's depending on the flow in the Parker River, over which we have no control. So that's the state of our water supply. The Ad Hoc Water Committee has existed for a long time, and we work with the DPW to do things that they don't have time for, haven't thought of, can't get around to. And some examples in the town report, annual report that you will see include some educational actions, including the assistance with the design of the new dial gauge at the transfer station showing the percent of water supply capacity, not gallons, but percent. And you may have noticed us at motif number 1 day where we were tabling to talk with people and inform them about water supply. So there are the actions that we have done, and we would like to continue to work with the DPW and anyone else in town that has issues related to water. So I encourage you to vote yes for this. We have a committee that is meeting once a month for less than an hour, and we would like to have more members. If you're interested in that, come talk to me afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mikas. Any further discussion? Mr. Arsenian.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. We've had the Ad Hoc Water Committee year after year since 1980. The committee in the dim and distant past took positions that I would say did the town damage. That's ancient history. More recently, the committee has provided useful services for the town. I wrote an amendment asking that the committee be thanked and terminated, and asking the DPW commissioners to reinstate the committee as a DPW committee. I think that would make sense because the Ad Hoc Water Committee has no budget, has no powers, can't touch anything. In the watersheds, the treatment plant, the pipes, all of that by state law belongs to the DPW commissioners and no one else. So anything that the committee might hope to do has to be done pretty much through the DPW. You couldn't make the motion I wanted to make. Brian Sullivan kindly wrote up what could be done, which referred the committee to the Board of Selectmen. And not everyone trusts the Board of Selectmen. I don't, and that motion did not strike the Ad Hoc Water Committee as safe or fair, so I don't offer it. But I feel very strongly, if we're going to go on with this, that the Ad Hoc Water Committee and the commissioners both ought to make a commitment to us that they would meet jointly as committees, not just representatives from the committees, at least quarterly, so that they know what the other is doing, and we, the town, get as much as possible out of it. Perhaps the commissioners or the committee would comment on that hope and suggestion.
All right, hold on, Mr. Arsenian. I want to make sure we get your motion to amend correctly down.
There is no motion to amend.
There's no motion. Okay.
Thank you. There's merely the request that the commissioners and the committee respond to my comment that they meet quarterly as committees.
Okay, got it. I got it. We'll see if there'll be a response from either the DPW commissioners or from the Water Committee. Chairman Reed. To be clear, there's no motion to amend. It's just the main motion, and there's been a request for clarification from the DPW. Yes, sir.
The first comment is these chairs are tough to get out of when you've been sitting this long.
All those in favor?
You know, the DPW has not talked about this at all, so I really can't say we'll take a look at it and decide whether, you know, it makes sense for us to have a committee that works with us closer than what we've had in the past relationship. But we have, you know, we take care of the water supply. We do what we need to do. We have the professionals, and we haven't spent time really thinking about whether we need a subcommittee to work with us. But we will talk about that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? Mr. Mikas.
We've had a fair amount of liaison. I have attended the DPW Commission meetings when I'm available and when I'm not. Another member of the Ad Hoc Water Committee has attended, but there are certain things that the DPW can get help with, and I'll point to one very interesting one in the past. We helped them identify from 100-year-old records where in town there are lead pipes. And interestingly to me, we found one that was labeled water supply to the drinking fountain at the tool company. So if we can help do things like that, I hope it's accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Mikas. Further discussion? Oh, okay, no, I sense you're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article O, whether to accept the report of the Ad Hoc Water Committee and extend the term of the committee, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. That motion carries and it's unanimous. We had a max attendance of 216. Please turn in your clickers on the way out so that we don't lose the clickers. I believe that's all we have for today. Oh, yeah, no, I'm going, and it's not a motion to adjourn, it's a motion to dissolve. The chair will entertain a motion to dissolve. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say cheeseburger, cheeseburger. All those opposed say no Coke, Pepsi. That motion carries, and if you got that, you're over 55 or you like SNL reruns from the 70s when it was really funny. Meeting dissolved.